My shift started at 11 o'clock p.m. I was working in the northern part of Deschutes County, Oregon. It was mid-November, and the nighttime temperature was close to freezing. The sky was hazy, and the moon was not clearly visible. Highway 97 between Burns Junction and Bend, a highway approximately 145 kilometers long. The mostly flat, two-lane road cut through high desert and scattered ponderosa pine forests. I had been a state trooper for 6 years by then. I preferred night shifts. There was less traffic and congestion, fewer civilians to deal with. Just you, the road, and the occasional drunk or reckless driver or stranded motorist. The silence suited me. That night, my patrol car was a 2019 black and white Dodge Charger, equipped with a standard MDT computer terminal, dash cam, and radio system. The dispatcher for the night was someone I'd worked with before. Her name was Nicole Brennan, a veteran operator with 15 years on the job. Professional, calm under pressure, never panicked. The kind of voice you wanted to hear when things went sideways. Unit 447, this is dispatch. Radio check. I pressed the transmit button on my shoulder mic. Dispatch, Unit 447, loud and clear. Copy that, 47. Quiet night so far. Weather advisory for possible freezing fog after 2 a.m. Highway 97 northbound is clear. No incidents reported in your sector. 10-4, dispatch, beginning patrol route. I pulled out of the station parking lot and headed north. The first hour of any night shift is always the same. You drive the main routes, check the usual spots where kids park to drink, scan for disabled vehicles, watch for erratic drivers. Routine. Methodical. My headlights cut through the darkness, illuminating the white fog line and the reflective markers spaced every few hundred feet. The radio remained quiet. Dispatch occasionally checked in with other units covering different sectors, but my area was dead. No calls, no incidents, nothing. Just the hum of the engine and the occasional crackle of static on the radio. Around midnight, I stopped at a turnout overlooking a valley. I stepped out of the vehicle to stretch my legs and check my equipment. The air was cold and still. No wind. The kind of silence that makes you aware of every sound you make. The creak of my duty belt, the scrape of my boots on gravel, the metallic click of my flashlight as I tested it. That's when I noticed the first strange detail. My phone had no signal. Not unusual in this area, there were plenty of dead zones in the high desert where cell towers didn't reach. But I'd had full bars when I left the station less than an hour ago, and this particular turnout usually had at least 1 or 2 bars. I checked the phone again. No signal, not even a single bar. Just the words "no service" at the top of the screen. I thought nothing of it at the time. Probably just a tower down for maintenance. I got back in the vehicle and continued north. The road stretched ahead of me, empty and dark. My headlights picked up the occasional reflective eyes of deer in the tree line, but otherwise, nothing moved. The dashboard clock read 12:17 a.m. That's when the radio crackled to life. Unit 447, this is dispatch. We have a welfare check request. Possible stranded motorist. Highway 97, approximately mile marker 145. Caller reported seeing a vehicle with hazard lights on the shoulder. Can you respond? I keyed my mic. Dispatch 447. Copy that. En route to mile marker 145, ETA about 12 minutes. 10-4, 447. Advise when on scene. I increased my speed, heading north toward the location. Mile marker 145 was in a particularly isolated stretch of highway, surrounded by dense forest on both sides. No houses, no businesses, no streetlights, just road and trees and darkness. As I drove, I kept scanning both sides of the highway for any sign of a vehicle. The mile markers ticked by. 141, 142, 143, 144. My eyes strained against the darkness, looking for the glow of hazard lights or the reflection of a vehicle on the shoulder. Mile marker 145 came and went. No vehicle, no hazard lights, nothing. I slowed down and made a U-turn at the next authorized crossover, then headed back south, scanning the opposite side of the road. Still nothing. I drove past mile marker 145 again, this time checking every possible pull-out and shoulder area within a quarter-mile radius. Nothing. The road was completely empty. I keyed my mic. Dispatch 447. I'm at mile marker 145. No vehicle visible on either side of the highway. No signs of a stranded motorist. Possible false report, or the vehicle already cleared the area. There was a pause. Longer than usual. Then Nicole's voice came back, and something in her tone had changed. Not quite concern, but a subtle shift toward confusion. Unit 447, can you confirm your location? We show you at mile marker 145? That's affirmative, dispatch. Mile marker 145, Highway 97 northbound. I've checked both shoulders and the immediate area. No vehicle present. Another pause. I could hear her typing on her keyboard. The faint click of keys transmitted through the open mic. 447, we're showing the original call came in at 12:09 a.m. Caller reported a dark-colored sedan, possibly a Honda, with hazard lights on the northbound shoulder at mile marker 145. Caller stated the vehicle appeared to be disabled. Copy that, dispatch. But there's nothing here. Do you have callback information for the reporting party? More typing. Then Nicole's voice again, and this time I definitely heard the confusion. 47, that's strange. The call log shows the incident was called in, but there's no callback number listed. No name, no vehicle description beyond what I already gave you. The log entry is incomplete. I frowned. That wasn't normal. Every call that came into dispatch was logged with detailed information. Caller name, callback number, location, nature of the complaint. Even anonymous calls from payphones or blocked numbers showed up as unknown caller with a notation. But an incomplete log entry? That was unusual. Dispatch, can you pull the recorded call? Maybe we can get more information from the audio. Standby 447. I sat in my vehicle at mile marker 145, engine idling, watching the empty road. My headlights illuminated maybe 200 feet of asphalt ahead, then nothing but darkness. The trees on either side of the highway were dense, their branches reaching across the shoulder like grasping fingers. The radio crackled. 447, I'm having trouble accessing the recorded call. The system shows it exists, but when I try to play it back, I'm getting an error message. I'm going to have to contact IT support to see what's going on. Copy that, dispatch. I'll continue patrol in the area. If the vehicle is out here somewhere, I'll find it. 10-4-447, I'll advise if I get any new information. I put the vehicle in drive and continued north, moving slowly, scanning every inch of the roadside. My spotlight swept across trees, guardrails, reflective markers, ditches. Nothing out of place. No tire tracks leading off the road, no debris, no signs of a recent vehicle stop. After about 20 minutes of searching, I gave up and headed back south to resume my normal patrol route. Whatever vehicle the caller had reported was long gone, if it had ever been there at all. False reports weren't uncommon. People saw things in the dark, imagined problems that didn't exist, called them in with good intentions. I pushed it out of my mind and continued driving. At 1:23 a.m., the radio crackled again. Unit 447, dispatch. We have another welfare check request. Highway 97, mile marker 145. Caller reports a disabled vehicle on the northbound shoulder. I felt a cold prickle run down my spine. I keyed my mic slowly. Dispatch, can you repeat that? Unit 447, welfare check requested. Highway 97, mile marker 145, disabled vehicle northbound shoulder. Dispatch, I was just at that location less than an hour ago. There was no vehicle present. Copy that, 447. But we have a new call reporting the same location. Can you respond? I hesitated. Something about this felt wrong. The same location, the same type of call, within an hour of the first one. But dispatch was asking me to respond, so I had no choice. 10-4, dispatch, en route to mile marker 145. Copy, 447. Advised when on scene. I turned the vehicle around and headed back north. As I drove, I tried to make sense of it. 2 calls, same location, same description. Maybe the first vehicle had broken down, managed to limp away, then broken down again in the same spot. Or maybe it was a different vehicle entirely, and the location was just a coincidence. But it didn't feel like a coincidence. Mile marker 145 appeared in my headlights. I slowed down, scanning the shoulder. Nothing, just like before. Empty road, dark trees, silence. I pulled onto the shoulder and put the vehicle in park. Got out. The air was colder now, and I could see my breath. I walked up and down the shoulder with my flashlight, checking for any signs of a vehicle having been there. Fresh tire tracks, fluid leaks, debris. Anything, nothing. The shoulder was undisturbed. I got back in the vehicle and keyed my mic. Dispatch, 447. On scene at mile marker 145. No vehicle present, no signs of recent activity. I'm going to need more information on this call. Do you have a description of the reporting party or a callback number? Silence. I waited. 10 seconds, 20, 30. Dispatch, Unit 447, do you copy? More silence. Then a burst of static, loud and harsh, followed by Nicole's voice, strained and uncertain. 447, I copy. I'm looking at the call log right now, and this doesn't make sense. The entry for this call is identical to the first one. Same timestamp, same description, same incomplete information. It's like the system duplicated the original call. That's not possible, dispatch. I heard you say we had a new call. I know, 447. But the system shows only one call. The original one from 12:09 a.m. There's no second call logged. I felt my hands tighten on the steering wheel. Dispatch, are you telling me there was no second call? I'm telling you the system doesn't show a second call. But I received one. I heard the phone ring. I heard the caller. But when I try to pull up the log entry, there's only the original call from 12:09. I sat in silence, trying to process what she was saying. A call that came in but wasn't logged. A system error maybe, a glitch in the software. It had to be something technical. Dispatch, what did the caller say? Can you give me any details? There was a long pause. When Nicole spoke again, her voice was quieter, almost hesitant. 447. The caller didn't say anything. The line was open. I could hear breathing and background noise. But when I asked for information, there was no response. Then the line went dead. How long was the call? Maybe 10 seconds. No more than that. I looked out at the empty road, the dark trees, the mile marker sign barely visible in the glow of my headlights. Something was very wrong here. Dispatch, I'm going to continue patrol. If you get any more calls for this location, let me know immediately. 10-4, 447, and be careful out there. That last part was unusual. Dispatchers didn't typically add personal commentary like that. The fact that Nicole felt the need to say it told me she was feeling the same unease I was. I pulled back onto the highway and continued south. My eyes kept flicking to the rearview mirror, half expecting to see headlights behind me or a vehicle on the shoulder that hadn't been there moments before. But the road remained empty. At 2:14 a.m., I pulled into a rest area about 15 miles south of mile marker 145. I needed coffee and a few minutes to clear my head. The rest area was deserted, just a small parking lot, a couple of bathroom buildings, and a covered picnic area. No other vehicles. I poured coffee from my thermos and sat in the driver's seat with the door open, listening to the night. The weather advisory Nicole had mentioned earlier was coming true. Fog was starting to roll in, thin wisps at first, then thicker patches that reduced visibility to maybe 50 feet. My phone still showed no signal. I was about to close the door and get back on the road when the radio crackled. Unit 47, dispatch. Go ahead, dispatch. We have a welfare check request. Highway 97, mile marker 145, disabled vehicle, northbound shoulder. My blood went cold. Dispatch, say again. Unit 447, welfare check. Highway 97, mile marker 145, disabled vehicle on the shoulder. Can you respond? I stared at the radio, my mind racing. This was the third time, the exact same call, the exact same location. This wasn't a coincidence. This wasn't a system glitch. Dispatch, I need you to listen to me very carefully. This is the third call for the same location. Something is wrong. Are you sure you're receiving an actual call and not some kind of system loop? 447, I understand your concern, but I'm looking at an active call right now. The caller is on the line. They're reporting a disabled vehicle at mile marker 145. Put them through to me. Patch the call through to my radio. Stand by, 407. I waited, my heart pounding. This had to be a prank. Someone with a police scanner calling in false reports messing with us. But even as I thought it, I knew it didn't add up. Dispatch could trace calls. Fake emergency calls were a felony, and why would someone repeatedly report the same location? The radio clicked, and I heard a connection being made. Then silence. Not the silence of an empty line, but the silence of someone on the other end, listening. This is Oregon State Police, Unit 447. Who am I speaking with? Silence. This is State Police. Can you hear me? What is your emergency? More silence. But I could hear something. A faint sound in the background. It took me a moment to identify it. Wind. Or something like wind. A low, rushing sound, like air moving through a tunnel. If you can hear me, please respond. Are you in need of assistance? The rushing sound grew louder, and beneath it I heard something else. A voice. Distant and distorted, but definitely a voice. I strained to make out the words. 147, 147, 147. The numbers. Someone was saying numbers, but not mile marker 145. They were saying 147. Dispatch, are you hearing this? Affirmative 447. I'm hearing it. They're saying 147. Mile marker 147. Not 145. Before Nicole could respond, the voice on the line changed. It became clearer, closer, as if whoever was speaking had moved directly next to the phone. A single word, spoken in a flat, emotionless tone. Help? Then the line went dead. I sat frozen, the radio still in my hand. My skin felt cold despite the coffee warming my other hand. That voice. It hadn't sounded right. The tone was wrong. The cadence was wrong. It was like someone doing an impression of what they thought the word help should sound like, without understanding the emotion behind it. 447, dispatch. Did you copy that transmission? Yeah, I copied it. Dispatch, I'm heading to mile marker 147. Something's not right about this. Copy 447. Be advised, I'm going to notify County Sheriff and request backup. 10-4. I'll advise when on scene. I pulled out of the rest area and headed north. The fog was thicker now, reducing my visibility significantly. I had to slow down to 40 miles per hour, my high beams reflecting off the fog and making it even harder to see. The mile markers emerged from the mist like ghosts, appearing suddenly and then vanishing behind me. As I approached mile marker 147, I slowed to a crawl. My spotlight swept across the shoulder, cutting through the fog in narrow beams. Trees, guardrails, reflective markers, and then something else. A vehicle, dark-colored, hazard lights blinking weakly through the fog. I felt my pulse quicken. I keyed my mic. Dispatch 447. I have visual on a vehicle at mile marker 147, northbound shoulder. Dark sedan, hazard lights activated. Moving in for closer inspection. 10-4-447. Use caution. I pulled in behind the vehicle, positioning my patrol car at an angle with my spotlights and headlights illuminating it. The vehicle was a Honda Accord, dark blue or black, older model, maybe 10 years old. The hazard lights were on, casting an orange glow in the fog. I couldn't see anyone inside from my position. I called in the license plate to dispatch and waited for her to run it. While I waited, I studied the vehicle. No visible damage, no flat tires. It was simply sitting on the shoulder, hazards blinking, as if the driver had pulled over and walked away. 447, dispatch. That plate comes back to a vehicle reported stolen 3 days ago out of Bend. Owner is listed as Marcus Holloway, age 34. Be advised, this vehicle may be involved in a felony. My adrenaline spiked. A stolen vehicle. That changed everything. I needed to approach carefully. I radioed back my acknowledgement and unbuckled my seatbelt. I stepped out of my patrol car, one hand on my sidearm, and approached the Honda slowly. The fog swirled around me, thick and disorienting. My flashlight beam cut through it in narrow shafts. State Police. If anyone is in the vehicle, show me your hands. No response. No movement. I reached the driver's side door and shined my light inside. Empty. No one in the driver's seat, no one in the passenger seat, no one in the back. The keys were still in the ignition. The engine was off, but the battery was clearly still working because the hazard lights were blinking. I tried the door handle. Unlocked. I opened it slowly and peered inside, checking for anything suspicious. The interior was clean, almost unnaturally so. No trash, no personal items, no signs that anyone had been sitting there recently. Even the seat was perfectly adjusted, as if someone had deliberately positioned it before leaving. On the dashboard, centered perfectly between the steering wheel and the windshield, was a cell phone. I didn't touch it immediately. Instead, I took photos with my own phone, which still showed no signal, and documented the scene. Then, using a glove, I picked up the cell phone and pressed the power button. The screen lit up. No lock screen, no password. It opened directly to the call log. One number called repeatedly. I counted the entries. 23 outgoing calls to the same number. The most recent was timestamped 2:14 a.m., exactly when dispatch had received the third welfare check call. I recognized the number. It was dispatch. All 23 calls had been made to Oregon State Police Dispatch. I felt a chill that had nothing to do with the temperature. I looked around, suddenly very aware of how isolated I was. The fog pressed in from all sides. The only sound was the steady click-click-click of the Honda's hazard lights. Dispatch 447. The vehicle is clear, no occupants. But I found a cell phone inside with multiple calls to dispatch in the log. The most recent call matches the timestamp of our last welfare check request. Copy 447. Can you determine who the phone belongs to? I navigated to the phone's settings, looking for identifying information. The phone's owner name was listed simply as M. Holloway, the same name as the vehicle's registered owner. Dispatch, phone is registered to Marcus Holloway, same name as the vehicle owner. I'm going to secure this as evidence and request a tow for the vehicle. 10-4-447. I'll contact a tow service. Backup is en route. ETA 20 minutes. 20 minutes. I looked at my watch. 2:47 a.m. I'd be standing here in the fog, alone with a stolen vehicle and a phone full of mysterious calls for 20 minutes. I walked back to my patrol car and sat in the driver's seat, leaving the door open so I could keep an eye on the Honda. The fog made it difficult to see more than 30 feet in any direction. The Honda's hazard lights continued their rhythmic blinking. That's when I noticed something that made my stomach drop. The call log on my MDT computer, the mobile data terminal that tracked all my radio communications, was showing something impossible. The 3 welfare check calls from tonight were listed. But according to the timestamps, all 3 calls had come in at exactly the same time. 12:09 a.m., not 12:09, then 1:23, then 2:14 like I remembered. All 3 showed 12:09 a.m. I checked my watch again. 2:51 a.m. I looked at the dashboard clock in my patrol car. 12:09 a.m. I felt my heart start to pound. That wasn't right. That couldn't be right. I'd been on duty for nearly 4 hours. The clock should read close to 3 o'clock a.m., not 12:09. I grabbed my personal phone. No signal, but the time displayed 2:51 a.m., my watch 2:51 a.m., dashboard clock 12:09 a.m., MDT timestamp 12:09 a.m. I keyed my radio with shaking hands. Dispatch 447. Can you give me a time check? 447, current time is 12:09 a.m. No, that wasn't possible. Dispatch, my watch shows 2:51 a.m. Are you sure your time is correct? There was a long pause. When Nicole responded, her voice sounded uncertain. 447, I'm looking at 3 different time sources right now. Dispatch system shows 12:09 a.m. The wall clock shows 12:09 a.m., but my personal cell phone shows 2:51 a.m. We were both seeing it. Whatever this was, it wasn't just me. Dispatch, something is very wrong. I'm going to request immediate backup. The radio cut out. Not with static, but with complete silence. I pressed the transmit button. Nothing. I checked the radio unit. Power was on, volume was up, but no sound came out. Dead air. I tried my cell phone again. Still no signal. I was alone. The fog seemed to grow thicker, pressing against the windows of my patrol car. The Honda's hazard lights continued their steady blinking, and in the silence, the click-click-click sound seemed impossibly loud. That's when I saw movement. Through the fog, beyond the Honda, a figure was walking toward me. I couldn't make out any details, just a dark silhouette moving steadily closer, slowly, deliberately. My hand went to my sidearm. I stepped out of the patrol car, positioning myself behind the door for cover. State Police, stop where you are and identify yourself. The figure kept walking. Closer. 30 feet, 25 feet. The fog swirled around it, but I still couldn't see any features. Just a dark shape, human-sized, moving with an odd, stilted gait. I said, stop. Do not come any closer. 20 feet, 15 feet. I drew my weapon, aiming at the figure. Stop immediately, or I will be forced to take action. 10 feet. And then the figure stopped. Right at the edge of my headlight beams, just barely visible through the fog. I could see it was a person, standing perfectly still. Too still, no swaying, no fidgeting, no movement at all. just standing. "Put your hands where I can see them. Do it now." The figure raised its arms slowly. But as it did, I realized something was wrong with the proportions. The arms were too long, or the torso was too short. Something about the silhouette wasn't quite right. Step forward into the light. Slowly. The figure took one step forward, then another. As it moved into the full beam of my headlights, I felt every muscle in my body tense. It was Marcus Holloway. I knew because I'd seen his license photo when dispatch ran the plate. Same face, same build, same features. But his eyes were completely black. Not just the pupils, the entire eye, from corner to corner, was solid black. And his skin had a waxy, artificial quality, like a mannequin. He opened his mouth and spoke in that same flat, emotionless tone I'd heard on the radio. "Help." Then he turned and walked back into the fog. I stood frozen, my gun still aimed at the space where he'd been standing. My mind was screaming at me to move, to do something, but my body wouldn't respond. I watched as his silhouette faded into the fog and disappeared. The radio suddenly crackled back to life. "Unit 447, this is dispatch. Do you copy?" I holstered my weapon with trembling hands and grabbed the radio. "Dispatch 447, I copy. I just had contact with Unit 447. We have a welfare check request. Highway 97, mile marker 145. Disabled vehicle, northbound shoulder. Can you respond?" I stared at the radio in disbelief. No, not again. "Dispatch, I'm not going back to mile marker 145. Something is happening out here. I need immediate backup. I need... Unit 447, can you respond to mile marker 145? Her voice was different now, mechanical, repeating. "Unit 447, can you respond? Unit 447, can you respond? Unit 447, can you respond?" Over and over, the same question, the same inflection, like a recording stuck in a loop. I turned off the radio. Silence fell over me, broken only by the click of the Honda's hazard lights and the sound of my own ragged breathing. I looked at my watch. 12:09 a.m. I looked at the dashboard clock. 12:09 a.m. I was trapped in this moment, in this call, in this location. The fog pressed closer, and somewhere out there in the darkness I heard the sound of footsteps. Multiple footsteps, coming closer. I got back in my patrol car and locked the doors. The logical part of my brain, the part that had been trained to stay calm in emergencies, to assess situations rationally, to follow procedure, was screaming that I needed to leave, drive away, get back to the station, report what was happening. But another part of my brain, the part that understood something fundamentally wrong was occurring, knew that leaving wouldn't help. Whatever this was, it had me. The same way it had that Honda. The same way it had Marcus Holloway. I turned the radio back on. The looping message had stopped. Static filled the channel, punctuated by occasional bursts of what sounded like voices, but distorted beyond recognition. I cycled through all the channels. Every one of them was the same, static and broken transmissions. My cell phone still showed no signal. I checked my laptop, the MDT terminal. It was frozen on a single screen. The call log showing all 3 welfare checks time-stamped at 12:09 a.m. I tried to access other systems, tried to type, tried to close programs. Nothing responded. The computer was locked. Through the windshield, the fog continued to press in. The Honda's hazard lights blinked their steady rhythm. The footsteps I'd heard had stopped, but I could feel presences out there. Multiple figures just beyond the range of my headlights watching. I needed to think. I needed to understand what was happening. The calls had all referenced mile marker 145, but the vehicle had been at 147. 2 miles north. The phone in the Honda had called dispatch 23 times. All the timestamps on my systems had frozen at 12:09 a.m., the exact time the first call had come in. A loop. That's what this felt like. A loop in time or space or reality. I didn't know which. I was being pulled back to the same moment, the same location, over and over. But why? What was the purpose? I grabbed my notebook and pen, old school but reliable, and started writing down everything I could remember. Times, locations, observations. The way Marcus Holloway's eyes had been solid black. The mechanical quality of Nicole's repeated question on the radio. The discrepancy between my watch and the vehicle's clock. As I wrote, I noticed something. On the dashboard of my patrol car, partially obscured by my coffee thermos, was a piece of paper I didn't remember putting there. I picked it up. It was a printout of a news article, dated 3 years ago. The headline read, "Local Man Missing After Highway Disappearance." I read the article quickly. Marcus Holloway, age 31 at the time, had disappeared while driving on Highway 97 between Bend and Burns Junction. His vehicle, a dark blue Honda Accord, had been found on the shoulder at mile marker 147, with the engine running and the keys in the ignition. No signs of struggle, no evidence of foul play. Marcus Holloway was never found. The article included a quote from the investigating officer. "It's as if he simply stepped out of his vehicle and vanished. We've conducted extensive searches of the surrounding area, but there's no trace of him. 3 years ago." I felt my hands start to shake. I looked up at the Honda, still sitting on the shoulder, hazard lights blinking. The same vehicle, the same location. 3 years later. Or was it 3 years later? What if time was slipping here? What if I wasn't experiencing this moment in 2024, but somehow touching the same moment that had occurred in 2021? The thought made my head spin. I forced myself to focus. I needed more information. I grabbed my flashlight and stepped out of the patrol car, moving quickly to the Honda. I had to get a better look inside, see if there was anything else that might explain what was happening. The driver's side door was still open from my first inspection. I leaned in, shining my light across every surface. The interior was exactly as I'd seen it before. Clean, empty, sterile. Almost like it had been staged. I opened the glove compartment. Inside was a single item. A small digital voice recorder. I picked it up carefully using my glove. The device was old, the kind journalists used to use before smartphones made them obsolete. There was a mini cassette inside. I pressed play. A voice crackled through the tiny speaker. Marcus Holloway's voice, I assumed, though it sounded strained and frightened. "This is Marcus Holloway. It's November 8th, 2021. If anyone finds this, please listen. I don't know what's happening to me." I was driving north on 97, heading home to Bend. It was around midnight. Clear night, no fog, good visibility. I saw a vehicle on the shoulder with its hazard lights on. It looked like someone needed help. A pause, breathing. I pulled over to check on them, but when I got out of my car, there was no one there. The vehicle was empty. A dark SUV, I think. I couldn't see it clearly. I tried to call 911, but my phone had no signal. So I got back in my car and tried to leave. Another pause. This one longer. I can't leave. I've been driving for what feels like hours, but I keep ending up back at the same spot. Mile marker 147. The same vehicle is still on the shoulder. I've tried going north, going south, doesn't matter. I always end up back here. And now I'm seeing things. People walking in the darkness. They look human, but they're not. They're watching me. His voice dropped to a whisper. I think they want me to stay. I think this place, this spot on the highway, I think it traps people. I don't know how or why, but I can feel it pulling at me. Like gravity, but worse. Every time I try to leave, the pull gets stronger, and the people in the darkness, they get closer. Static, then his voice again, barely audible. If you're hearing this, don't stop here. Don't try to help anyone on this stretch of road, just drive. Don't stop. Don't. The recording cut off abruptly. I stood there holding the voice recorder, my heart pounding so hard I could hear it in my ears. Marcus Holloway had experienced the exact same thing I was experiencing now, 3 years ago. He'd been trapped in the same loop, seen the same figures in the darkness, and he'd never escaped. A sound made me spin around. Behind me, maybe 20 feet away, stood 3 figures. They emerged from the fog like shadows gaining substance. All 3 were wearing what looked like state trooper uniforms. As they moved closer, I could see their faces. The one in the center was me, not a similar-looking person, not someone who resembled me. It was my face, my build, my exact uniform down to the badge number and name tape. But like Marcus Holloway, the eyes were completely black, and the skin had that same waxy, artificial quality. The 2 figures flanking it were other troopers I recognized, officers who had disappeared over the years. Reed Dalton, who'd vanished 4 years ago during a night shift on this same stretch of highway. Mason Brooks, who'd gone missing 2 years before that. They stood perfectly still, staring at me with those black eyes. The figure with my face opened its mouth and spoke in my voice. "Unit 447, this is dispatch. We have a welfare check request." I backed away slowly, my hand moving to my sidearm. But I knew, somehow, that shooting them wouldn't help. They weren't really here. Or maybe they were too here. Copies, echoes, imprints of people who'd been caught in this loop. "Stay back," I said, trying to keep my voice steady. "I'm warning you." They didn't move. They just stood there, watching. And then, in perfect unison, all 3 of them tilted their heads to the left at an unnatural angle. The movement was jerky, mechanical, like marionettes being manipulated by an unskilled puppeteer. I turned and ran back to my patrol car, yanking the door open and diving inside. I locked the doors and started the engine, my hands shaking so badly I could barely grip the steering wheel. I needed to get out of here. Loop or no loop, trap or no trap, I needed to try. I put the car in drive and pressed the accelerator. The patrol car lurched forward, tires spinning slightly on the foggy pavement before gaining traction. I drove south, away from mile marker 147, away from the Honda and those things that looked like people but weren't. My headlights cut through the fog, illuminating the road ahead. Mile markers flashed by. 46, 145, 144, I kept driving, foot heavy on the accelerator, watching the markers count down. I was making progress, I was getting away. Relief started to wash over me. Whatever that place was, I was leaving it behind. I just needed to keep driving until... The fog ahead suddenly grew thicker, so dense that my headlights couldn't penetrate it. It was like driving into a white wall. I slowed down, straining to see the road, but visibility dropped to 0 within seconds. I came to a complete stop, afraid to continue blind. I sat there, engine idling, waiting for the fog to thin. Slowly, gradually, the white wall began to recede. Visibility returned, and as it did, my heart sank. Mile marker 147. I was back, exactly where I'd started. The Honda was on the shoulder, hazard lights blinking. My patrol car was positioned behind it at an angle, exactly as I'd left it. No, that wasn't right. My patrol car was still here, but I was in my patrol car, which meant I looked in my rearview mirror. Behind me, parked on the shoulder, was another state police vehicle. Same model, same number. Unit 447. My unit. I was looking at my own patrol car, parked behind the Honda, exactly as it had been moments ago. And sitting in the driver's seat of that other patrol car, I could see a figure. As I watched, it opened the door and stepped out. It was me. Another version of me, moving through the same motions I'd gone through earlier. The figure approached the Honda, flashlight sweeping across the interior, checking the doors. It was recreating my actions exactly, like watching a recording of myself. I looked down at my own hands, gripping the steering wheel. They were solid, real. I was here, in this moment, experiencing this, but I was also there, behind me, investigating the Honda. The loop wasn't just repeating, it was layering. Multiple versions of the same event, stacking on top of each other. How many times had I already been through this? How many versions of me were trapped in this moment? The figure that looked like me finished inspecting the Honda and returned to its patrol car. It sat in the driver's seat exactly as I had done, and then it put the car in drive and pulled away, heading south on the highway. I watched it disappear into the fog, watched myself leave, watched myself try to escape. A few minutes later, the fog ahead grew thicker, and through it, I saw headlights approaching from the south. A state police vehicle emerged from the white wall, slowed to a stop, and parked behind the Honda. The door opened. A figure stepped out. Me, again. I was watching myself arrive at mile marker 147 for the first time, which meant that version of me was about to discover the Honda, find the voice recorder, see the figures in the fog, try to escape, and end up right back here. An endless cycle. I don't know how long I sat there watching versions of myself repeat the same actions over and over. 5 times? 10? I lost count. Each iteration was identical. Each one ended with that version of me trying to drive away, only to return moments later. The sun should have been rising. My shift should have been over. But when I checked my watch, it still read 12:09 a.m. Time had stopped, or I was caught outside of time, or time had become meaningless in this place. I tried the radio again. This time, instead of static, I heard a voice, Nicole's voice. But it sounded different, strained, frightened. 447, if you can hear me, please respond. We've lost contact with multiple units on Highway 97. Reed Dalton, Mason Brooks, Harris Cole. They all went missing investigating welfare checks at the transmission cut out. Harris Cole. That was a name I didn't recognize. I grabbed my notebook and wrote it down, then tried to pull up dispatch records on my MDT. Still frozen, but I had my smartphone, and even though it had no signal, I downloaded backup copies of personnel files as months ago for reference. I scrolled through the files. Harris Cole. Oregon State Police. Disappeared 6 years ago during a night shift on Highway 97. Last known location. Mile marker 147. 6 years ago. Before Reed Dalton. Before Mason Brooks. Before Marcus Holloway. How long had this been happening? How many people had been caught in this trap? I searched for more names, looking for any pattern. Over the past decade, 7 people had disappeared on this stretch of highway. All of them between midnight and 5 a.m., all of them somewhere near mile marker 145 to 147. All of them investigating welfare check calls for disabled vehicles. 7 people. 7 disappearances. And now me. But I wasn't gone yet. I was still conscious, still aware, still able to think and reason. The others, the figures in the fog with black eyes, they'd been absorbed completely, transformed into something else. I still had time. I needed to find a way to break the loop. Marcus Holloway's recording had said he felt a pull, like gravity, drawing him back to this spot. Maybe that was the key. Maybe this place, this specific location, was somehow anchored. A fixed point that trapped anyone who stopped here. But why? What made this spot different? I pulled up mapping data on my phone, zooming in on mile marker 147. The location was unremarkable. Just highway, forest, and high desert. No historical significance that I could find. No accident reports beyond the disappearances. No geological anomalies noted. Unless there was something underground. A cave system, maybe, or old mining tunnels. This part of Oregon had been heavily mined in the 1800s and early 1900s. Lots of abandoned shafts and tunnels, many of them unmapped. I looked at the ground around my patrol car, shining my flashlight at the shoulder and the tree line. The pavement looked normal. The dirt and gravel on the shoulder showed no signs of subsidence or sinkholes. But maybe deeper down. A sound interrupted my thoughts. A scraping noise, like metal on pavement. I looked up. The Honda's driver's side door was slowly closing. On its own. No wind, no person touching it. It simply swung shut with a soft click. Then the vehicle's headlights turned on. I froze. The Honda had been dark except for the hazard lights. Now its full headlights blazed, cutting through the fog, aimed directly at my patrol car. The high beams flicked on, painfully bright, and the horn started blaring. Long, sustained blasts. Honk, honk, honk. I covered my ears, the sound impossibly loud in the enclosed space of my patrol car. The Honda's horn continued its assault, rhythmic and relentless. Then the hazard lights started flashing faster, and the headlights began to pulse in time with the horn. The vehicle was having some kind of electrical seizure, all its systems activating at once. The radio crackled. Multiple voices, all talking at once, overlapping and distorted. Unit 447, welfare check, mile marker 145. Officer down, Highway 97. This is Marcus Holloway. If anyone finds this, Unit 47, can you respond? Help! The cacophony was overwhelming. I reached for the radio to turn it off, but before I could, all the voices suddenly stopped. Silence fell like a hammer. The Honda's horn went quiet. Its lights shut off. The hazard lights resumed their slow, steady blinking. In the new silence, I heard something else. Footsteps on pavement. Many footsteps. Coming from all directions. I looked through my windows. Figures were emerging from the fog. Dozens of them. All wearing uniforms. State police, sheriff's deputies, civilian clothes, all moving toward my patrol car with that same jerky, unnatural gait. All with solid black eyes and waxy skin. I recognized some of the faces. Reed Dalton, Mason Brooks, Harris Cole, Marcus Holloway. Others I didn't know, but their uniforms placed them decades apart. Some modern, some from the 90s, some that looked like they were from the 70s or 80s. How long had this been happening? How far back did it go? They surrounded my patrol car, pressing close to the windows. Dozens of faces staring in at me. Some were mouthing words I couldn't hear. Others were perfectly silent, just watching with those black eyes. The figure that looked like me pushed its way to the front. It placed its hands on my driver's side window, and I could see they were wrong, too. The fingers were too long, the joints bent at angles that weren't quite right. It opened its mouth and spoke, and this time I could hear it clearly through the glass. Stay. One word. Simple. Direct. All the other figures repeated it in unison. Stay. 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 Their voices layered and echoed, creating a sound that seemed to come from everywhere at once. The word repeated, over and over, building in volume until it felt like my skull would crack from the pressure. I squeezed my eyes shut, hands pressed over my ears, trying to block it out. The word continued, relentless. Stay. 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 And then, suddenly, it stopped. I opened my eyes. The figures were gone. The fog had cleared slightly. I was alone again at mile marker 147, my patrol car parked behind the Honda. I checked my watch. 12:09 a.m. I checked the dashboard clock. 12:09 a.m. I looked at the MDT. Still frozen. Still showing 12:09 a.m. I was back at the beginning. Again. I sat in my patrol car and tried to think rationally. Every attempt to leave brought me back here. Every moment in the loop felt real, but I was somehow unstuck from normal time. The figures in the fog were past victims, transformed into something else. Guardians or prisoners of this place, I couldn't tell which. The location itself had to be the key. Mile marker 147. Something about this specific point on Highway 97 was acting as an anchor, a trap. And according to the patterns I documented, it had been active for decades. I needed to approach this differently. Running hadn't worked. Trying to escape the loop physically was impossible. So, what if the solution wasn't physical? I thought about what Marcus Holloway had said in his recording. He'd felt a pull, like gravity. Maybe that was literal. Maybe this place exerted some kind of force, not physical gravity, but something that affected consciousness, or perception, or time itself. If that were true, then maybe the way out wasn't to drive away from the location, but to somehow resist or counteract the pull. But how? I grabbed my notebook again and reviewed everything I'd written. The calls always referenced mile marker 145, but the vehicle appeared at 147, 2 miles north. What if that wasn't an error? What if the difference was significant? Mile marker 145 might be where the trap began, the event horizon, so to speak. And mile marker 147 was the center, the point of no return. Anyone who made it to 147 was caught. But maybe at 145, there was still a chance to break free. It was a theory, a desperate, probably wrong theory. But it was all I had. I checked my equipment. Flashlight, extra batteries, my sidearm with 2 spare magazines, my baton, zip ties, first aid kit. None of it seemed useful against whatever I was dealing with, but I felt better having it inventoried. I also grabbed the voice recorder from the Honda. If I was going to try something different, I wanted to document it. Maybe the next person caught in this trap would need the information. I pressed record on the device and spoke into it. This is State Trooper. I'm documenting my experience at mile marker 147 on Highway 97. The time according to my watch is approximately 2:53 a.m., but all system clocks are frozen at 12:09 a.m. I'm trapped in what appears to be a temporal loop centered on this location. I paused, trying to organize my thoughts. Multiple individuals have disappeared here over the past several decades. Their echoes or copies remain, manifesting as figures with black eyes and waxy skin. I believe the disappearances are connected to welfare check calls for disabled vehicles. The calls always reference mile marker 145, but vehicles appear at 147. Another pause. I'm going to attempt to break the loop by proceeding on foot to mile marker 145. If I don't return from this, whoever finds this recording should know. Don't stop at mile marker 147. Don't investigate welfare checks in this area. This place traps people. It's been doing it for a long time, maybe longer than we know. I stopped the recording and slipped the device into my pocket. Then I got out of my patrol car. The air was cold and thick with fog. My breath came out in clouds. I closed the door behind me and locked the vehicle. A pointless gesture, but habit ran deep. I started walking south along the shoulder of the highway, my flashlight cutting through the fog. The Honda's hazard lights blinked behind me, growing fainter as I put distance between us. 1 mile. I needed to walk 1 mile to reach mile marker 145. At a steady pace, maybe 15 or 20 minutes, I walked in silence, listening for any sign of the figures. But the fog remained empty. Only my footsteps on gravel broke the quiet. After what felt like the right amount of time, I stopped and shined my flashlight on the road. I should have passed at least 1 mile marker by now, but I hadn't seen any. I looked behind me. The Honda's hazard lights were still visible in the distance, faint orange pulses in the fog. I'd been walking away from it for 20 minutes. Those lights should have been long out of sight by now. I turned and continued walking. Another 10 minutes. Still no mile marker. And when I looked back, the Honda was still there, exactly the same distance away. I wasn't moving, or rather, I was walking, but the distance wasn't changing. It was like being on a treadmill, endless motion with no progress. I stopped and stood still, considering my options. If I couldn't move away from mile marker 147 on foot, then maybe I needed to move toward something instead. But what? That's when I noticed it. To my left, barely visible through the fog, was a break in the tree line, a narrow path or access road leading into the forest. I hadn't noticed it before during any of my patrols. In fact, I was certain it hadn't been there, but it was there now. I hesitated. Every instinct told me not to leave the highway. Stay on the road. Stay visible. Don't go into the woods at night with poor visibility and no backup. But I was already in an impossible situation. Normal rules didn't apply here. I turned my flashlight toward the path. It was overgrown with weeds and small bushes, suggesting it hadn't been used in years. But the path itself was clear enough to follow. It led directly into the forest, disappearing into darkness after about 20 feet. I pulled out the voice recorder again and documented what I was seeing. Then I took a deep breath and stepped off the highway. The ground beneath my feet changed immediately. The firm pavement of the highway shoulder gave way to soft earth and dead leaves. The sound of my footsteps became muffled. The fog seemed thinner here, or maybe it was just that the trees blocked my view of it. I followed the path deeper into the forest. My flashlight beam danced across tree trunks and low-hanging branches. The path curved slightly to the left, then straightened out again. After about 50 yards, I came to a clearing. In the center of the clearing was a structure. At first, I thought it was a small building or shed, but as I got closer, I realized it was something older, much older. It was a stone foundation, maybe 10 feet by 10 feet, with 3 walls still partially standing. The 4th wall had collapsed, leaving a gap where a doorway might have been. The stonework was rough and weathered, covered in moss and lichen. This thing had been here for a century, maybe more. I approached cautiously, sweeping my flashlight across the structure. No roof, no door, just these crumbling walls in the middle of the forest. But there was something inside. I stepped through the gap in the wall and entered what remained of the structure. The floor was dirt, packed hard by time. And in the exact center, someone had placed objects in a circular pattern. Pieces of metal, badges, nameplates, belt buckles. All of them engraved with names or numbers. I knelt down, examining them more closely. Each item was from a law enforcement uniform. State police, county sheriff, highway patrol. Some were recent, the metal still shiny. Others were corroded with age, green with oxidation. I recognized some of the names: Reed Dalton, Mason Brooks, Harris Cole, And there, near the edge of the circle, a badge with my name on it. Unit 47. My badge. But I was still wearing my badge. I looked down and confirmed it was clipped to my uniform. So how could my badge also be here, in this circle of items? Unless it was a copy, or a future version, or something left behind by one of my loop iterations. In the center of the circle, sitting on a flat stone, was a human skull. I stood up quickly, my hand moving instinctively to my sidearm, but I didn't draw. There was no threat here, just evidence of something ancient and wrong. The skull was old, the bone yellowed with age. It sat on the stone like an offering or a marker, and around its base, someone had carved symbols into the stone. Not letters or numbers, abstract shapes that didn't match any language I recognized. I pulled out my phone and took pictures of everything. The structure, the circle of badges, the skull, the symbols. If I somehow managed to get out of this, these images would be critical evidence. As I photographed the skull, I noticed something underneath it. A piece of paper, old and yellowed but protected from the elements by the skull's placement. I carefully lifted the skull, trying not to think about whose remains these were, and retrieved the paper. It was fragile, threatening to crumble at my touch. The paper had writing on it, handwritten in faded ink. I held my flashlight close and read, "To whoever finds this, this place is cursed. Has been since the first road was built through here in 1932. Before that, the Indians wouldn't come near this spot. Called it a thin place, where the world of the living and the world of the dead touched. When they built the highway, they disturbed something, opened it wider. Now, it takes people, pulls them in and won't let go. I've been studying it for 30 years. Trying to understand, trying to stop it. But it's too strong. All I can do is warn others. Don't stop at mile marker 147. Don't answer the calls. Don't try to help. If you're reading this, you're probably already caught. I'm sorry, there's no way out that I've found. You'll loop forever, or until you become one of them. The only mercy I can offer is this. It's faster if you don't resist. Let the pull take you. Become part of the place. It's better than being aware forever." Sheriff Thomas Wade, 1963. This sheriff had been investigating the disappearances 60 years ago, and he'd been caught too. Was his skull the one sitting on the stone? Or had he managed to escape long enough to write this warning before vanishing? I felt a wave of despair wash over me. If someone studying this place for 30 years couldn't find a way out, what chance did I have? But then I noticed something else on the paper. A second note, written in different handwriting, squeezed into the margin. Wade was wrong. There is a way. The pull is strongest at the center, weakest at the edge. You can't resist it from the center. You have to make it to the boundary before the first call completes. After that, you're in the loop. But before, if you're fast enough, you can break free. The boundary is at mile marker 145. You have to reach it before 12:09 a.m. becomes permanent. Once the time locks, you're trapped. Harris Cole, 2018. Harris Cole. The officer who disappeared 6 years ago. He'd figured something out. He'd discovered a potential escape method. But clearly, he hadn't succeeded, because his badge was in the circle with all the others. Still, it was more hope than I'd had before. I checked my watch. 12:09 a.m. Still frozen. Which meant I was past the point Cole was describing. The time had already locked for me. I was in the permanent loop, unless I could somehow unlock it. I thought about what Cole had written. The pull is strongest at the center, weakest at the edge. I was at the center, mile marker 147, and I'd tried to reach the edge, mile marker 145, but couldn't make progress. But maybe I'd been approaching it wrong. Maybe I couldn't walk to the edge. Maybe I had to be brought there. The welfare check calls. They all referenced mile marker 145. The calls were part of the trap mechanism, luring people to stop. But what if I could reverse it? What if I could use the call to pull myself toward 145 instead of being pulled toward 147? It was insane. I had no idea if it would work, but I was out of options. I carefully returned the skull to its position and pocketed the paper with the warnings. Then I made my way back through the forest to the highway. As I emerged from the tree line, I saw my patrol car exactly where I'd left it. The Honda's hazard lights blinked steadily. Everything was the same. I walked to my patrol car and got inside. Turned on the radio. Static, as expected. "Dispatch, this is Unit 447. Do you copy?" No response. "Dispatch, I need you to send me back to mile marker 145. I'm requesting to respond to the original welfare check call. The first call, the one that started this." Silence. Then, slowly, the static began to change. It formed patterns, rhythms, like a signal trying to break through interference. And then Nicole's voice, distant and distorted. "Unit 447, mile marker 145. Yes, dispatch. Mile marker 145. Send me there. I'm responding to the call." The radio went silent. For a long moment, nothing happened. Then my patrol car shuddered. The engine revved on its own, the transmission engaging without my input. The vehicle lurched forward, accelerating rapidly. I grabbed the steering wheel, trying to regain control, but the car wasn't responding to my inputs. It was driving itself, picking up speed, headlights cutting through the fog. Mile markers flashed by. 147. 146. 145. The car screamed past mile marker 145 without slowing. I was going south, away from the trap zone, but at nearly 90 miles per hour. The vehicle showed no signs of stopping. The steering wheel jerked in my hands as the car navigated curves without my help. And then, just as suddenly as it started, the vehicle slowed. The engine returned to normal. Control came back to my hands. I brought the car to a gradual stop on the shoulder and sat there, breathing hard, trying to process what had just happened. I checked the dashboard clock. 12:08 a.m. Not 12:09. 12:08. I'd gone backward in time. 1 minute. The loop had shifted. My watch showed 12:08 a.m. The MDT showed 12:08 a.m. Everything was synchronized at 1 minute before the first call. I looked around. The fog was thinner here. I could see maybe 100 feet in every direction. And according to the nearest mile marker, I was at mile marker 137, 10 miles south of the trap zone. I'd escaped the center. But was I free of the loop entirely, or just temporarily displaced? I decided to test it. I put the car in drive and headed south, away from mile markers 145, 147. I drove for 10 miles, watching the markers count down. 136, 135, 134. All the way to 127. I didn't loop back. The road continued forward normally. The fog continued to thin. After another 5 miles, I saw lights ahead. The glow of a gas station and rest area. Civilization. Reality. The normal world. I pulled into the rest area and parked, got out. Walked into the gas station where a bored attendant looked up from his phone and nodded at me. "Evening, officer." "Evening," I managed to reply. I was out. I'd escaped. I looked at my watch. 12:47 a.m. Time was moving forward normally again. My phone suddenly vibrated. Signal had returned. 5 bars, multiple missed calls and messages loading. The real world reconnecting. I stepped outside and called dispatch. "Dispatch, this is Unit 447. 47, go ahead." It was Nicole's voice, normal and clear. "Everything okay? You went radio silent for a while there." Yeah. Radio malfunction. I'm at the rest area at mile marker 122. I need to report something. Go ahead, 447. I paused, trying to figure out how to explain what had happened. How do you report a temporal loop and murderous copies of missing officers in a way that sounds sane? Dispatch, I need you to flag mile markers 145 through 147 on Highway 97 as a potential hazard zone. No units should respond to welfare checks in that area without backup and a supervisor present. Can you clarify the nature of the hazard, 447? I stopped. Thought about Sheriff Wade's warning from 1963. Thought about Harris Cole's note. Thought about all the officers who disappeared trying to investigate or help. There's something wrong with that stretch of road. I can't fully explain it, but people go missing there. Officers go missing there. It needs to be investigated by a specialized team during daylight hours. No one should be sent there alone at night. A long pause, then, copy that, 447. I'll make a note in the system and contact the sergeant. Do you need any assistance at your location? Negative, dispatch, I'm fine. I'm going to complete my shift from this sector. 10-4, 447. I ended the transmission and stood in the parking lot of the gas station, watching normal traffic pass by on the highway. Cars with families, late-night truckers, people living their normal lives completely unaware of what existed a few miles north. I thought about going back, trying to document the site more thoroughly, gathering evidence, maybe even trying to destroy that stone foundation in the woods. But I remembered what Cole had written. You can't resist it from the center. If I went back, I'd be caught again. And next time I might not escape. I got back in my patrol car and drove south, putting more distance between myself and mile marker 147. I radioed dispatch and requested permission to extend my patrol route further south for the rest of the night. Permission granted. I didn't go back. 6 months have passed since that night. I still work for Oregon State Police, still work night shifts, but I requested a permanent reassignment to a different patrol sector and it was granted without questions. I now cover Highway 97 from mile marker 90 south to the California border. I never go north of mile marker 120. The official investigation into the anomalies at mile marker 147 never happened. Or, if it did, I was never informed. The flag I requested dispatch to put in the system was noted, but no specialized team was ever sent. No daylight investigation was conducted. Maybe the higher-ups thought I'd had a breakdown. Night shift stress, isolation, fatigue-induced hallucination. They were probably debating whether to send me for a psychological evaluation. But I finished my shift that night without further incident, wrote a very careful report that focused on equipment malfunctions and difficult driving conditions, and never brought it up again. And the disappearances stopped. For 6 months, no one has vanished from that stretch of highway. No welfare check calls have been logged for mile markers 145-147. The area has been quiet. I want to believe that somehow, by escaping the loop, I broke something, disrupted the pattern, closed whatever was opened. But I don't actually believe that. I think it's waiting, building strength. Or maybe it simply doesn't need to feed as frequently as I feared. Sheriff Wade studied it for 30 years. These cycles might span decades. I've tried to investigate what I can from a distance. I submitted FOIA requests for old incident reports and dispatch logs from that area going back as far as records exist. The requests were denied. Ongoing investigation, records sealed. Which tells me someone, somewhere, knows something. I've also looked into the history of that stretch of highway. The road was indeed built in 1932, cutting through what had been wilderness. Before that, the area was part of the traditional territory of the northern Paiute tribes. I found one anthropological survey from the 1920s that mentioned local indigenous people avoiding a particular area they described as the place where the world is thin. The survey didn't specify exact coordinates, but the general description matched the location of mile marker 147. The stone foundation I found in the woods bothered me the most. I've been unable to find any records of what it was. No old maps show a building there. No historical records mention a structure. It's as if it doesn't officially exist, even though I saw it, photographed it, touched it. I still have those photos on my phone. I've looked at them dozens of times, studying the circle of badges, the skull, the carved symbols. I've shown the symbols to colleagues with various specialties: history, archaeology, linguistics. No one can identify them. The voice recorder from Marcus Holloway's car is locked in my personal safe at home. I've listened to his recording multiple times. Each time, I hear something new in the background noise, sounds that might be voices, or might be wind, or might be something else entirely. I've also kept the paper with Sheriff Wade's and Harris Cole's warnings. I read them periodically, reminding myself that what I experienced was real, that I'm not losing my mind. 3 weeks ago, something happened that convinced me the danger isn't over. I was off duty, shopping at a grocery store in Bend. As I was loading bags into my car, I heard a voice behind me. "Excuse me, officer?" I turned. A man was standing there, maybe 35 years old, wearing civilian clothes. He looked normal, tired, but normal. "I'm off duty," I said. "But if you need help, I can call. Are you the trooper who works Highway 97? I felt a chill. "I work a southern sector, yeah. Why?" "I've been having dreams," he said. His eyes were strange, distant. "About a place on that highway, mile marker 147. In my dreams, I'm driving, and I see a vehicle on the shoulder. Every night, same dream. And in the dream, I stop to help. And then—" He trailed off, staring past me at nothing. "And then what?" I asked, even though I wasn't sure I wanted to know. "And then I can't leave. I'm stuck there, in that same spot, forever. Driving away, but always coming back, and there are people there, people who look wrong. They tell me to stay." My mouth went dry. "How long have you been having these dreams?" 3 months. They started in March, every single night. I've tried sleeping pills, therapy, everything. Nothing stops them, and the thing is—" He looked directly at me, and I saw fear in his eyes. Real, genuine terror. "The thing is, I've never driven on Highway 97. I've never been to that part of Oregon, but I know exactly what that place looks like. I could draw you a map, I could describe every tree, every crack in the pavement, and I know something is calling me there, pulling me, like it wants me to visit." I took a slow breath. "Don't go there. Whatever you do, don't drive to that location." I'm trying not to, but the pull gets stronger every day. It's like an itch I can't scratch, a voice I can't unhear. I don't know how much longer I can resist. I gave him my card. "If you feel like you're losing the ability to resist, call me immediately, day or night. Don't go there alone, don't go there at all if you can help it." He took the card, nodded, and walked away. I watched him get into a Honda Accord, dark blue, older model, and drive off. I haven't heard from him since. I've called the number he gave me 3 times. It goes straight to voicemail. I've checked missing persons reports. Nothing yet, but I'm waiting, because I know that eventually his name will appear in a report. Another disappearance. Another person drawn to mile marker 147. The loop is still active. It's just being more selective now, or more patient. I've considered going back, trying to finish what I started. finding a way to destroy that stone foundation, disrupt the pattern, break whatever mechanism is trapping people. But I'm afraid. Not just of being caught in the loop again, but of making things worse. What if that foundation is actually containing something? What if it's not the source of the trap, but a warning marker, a seal? I don't know. And not knowing is the worst part. All I can do is keep my distance, monitor reports, and hope that I saved at least myself. Hope that by escaping, I didn't just delay my own capture. Because here's what I haven't told anyone. Sometimes, late at night when I'm on patrol, I hear my radio crackle even when it's turned off. And in the static, I hear Nicole's voice, faint and distant, saying the same thing over and over. Unit 447, we have a welfare check request. Highway 97, mile marker 145. And every time I hear it, the pull gets a little stronger. I look at my watch when this happens. Without fail, it reads 12:09 a.m. Even if the actual time is 2 a.m. or 4 a.m. or any other hour, when I hear that phantom dispatch call, my watch shows 12:09. The loop never completely released me. Part of me is still there, trapped at mile marker 147, living through that moment over and over. I can feel it, a shadow version of myself, stuck in time, trying to escape and failing. How long before the shadow and the reality merge? How long before I'm pulled back completely? I don't know, but I'm documenting everything. I'm writing this account and storing copies in multiple locations. If I disappear, someone needs to know what happened. Someone needs to have the full story. To whoever reads this, mile marker 147 on Highway 97 in Oregon is not what it appears to be. It's a trap that's been active for at least a century, possibly much longer. It pulls people in and doesn't let go. It transforms them into something else. Copies, echoes, guardians of the trap itself. If you're ever driving that highway at night, and you see a disabled vehicle between mile markers 145 and 147, don't stop. Don't investigate. Don't try to help. Just drive past. I know that goes against everything we're trained to do as law enforcement. I know it violates the oath to protect and serve, but some places can't be helped. Some places can only be avoided. And if you're reading this because I've disappeared, if my name has been added to the list of missing officers, then you know what happened to me. I went back. Because despite everything, despite the fear, despite knowing the danger, I can feel the pull getting stronger. It's in my dreams now, just like that man in the parking lot described. And I know that eventually, I won't be able to resist. Eventually, I'll get in my patrol car, drive north on Highway 97, and respond to that welfare check call at mile marker 145. And I'll see the Honda on the shoulder at mile marker 147, hazard lights blinking. And I'll stop, and I won't leave. The loop wants me back. It's patient. It can wait. But it won't have to wait much longer. Last night, I dreamed I was standing at mile marker 147, watching myself drive past. I was wearing my uniform, but my eyes were solid black. And when the version of me in the patrol car looked out the window, I smiled and waved. Then I said, in that flat, emotionless tone I'd heard so many times, "Stay." I woke up at 12:09 a.m. I'm writing this now, at 3:47 a.m. on November 19th, 2024. I'm at home, off duty, door locked, every light in the house turned on. But I can feel it. The pull. Like gravity. Like an undertow. Drawing me north, drawing me back. I don't know if I'll be able to resist another day. If you find this account and I'm gone, please mark that area. Close that highway if you can. Do something to warn people. And if you can't do any of that, at least remember, Don't stop at mile marker 147. Don't answer the welfare check calls. Don't try to help. Just drive past. And whatever you do, don't look in your rearview mirror. Because if you do, you might see me standing there in the darkness watching you drive away. And you might hear me say, "Stay." My shift started at 10 p.m. on a Tuesday in February. I was assigned to patrol a section of Interstate 80 in Wyoming, covering the stretch between Rawlins and Laramie. About 80 miles of highway cutting through high prairie and rolling hills. Winter weather, temperature hovering around 15 degrees Fahrenheit. Clear skies, no precipitation expected, but wind gusts up to 30 miles per hour were creating ground blizzard conditions in exposed areas. I'd been with Wyoming Highway Patrol for 4 years at that point. This was my usual sector, and I knew every mile of it. Every exit, every rest area, every spot where black ice formed when temperatures dropped. The night shifts suited me. Less traffic, more time to think, and the landscape took on a different quality in the darkness. Vast. Empty. Honest. My patrol vehicle was a 2020 Ford Explorer, white with gold striping, equipped with standard communication systems, dash cam, and emergency equipment. I did my pre-shift inspection, checked my gear, and pulled out of the station in Rawlins at 10:15 p.m. The dispatcher for the evening was a woman named Angela Martinez. She'd been with the department for 12 years, knew her job inside and out, and had a good sense of when to talk and when to stay quiet. Professional and reliable. Unit 23, this is dispatch. Radio check. I pressed the transmit button. Dispatch, Unit 23, loud and clear. Copy that, 23. Weather advisory remains in effect for wind and blowing snow. I-80 is open, no closures reported. Current incidents, none in your sector. Safe travels. 10-4, dispatch, beginning westbound patrol. I merged onto I-80 and headed west toward Laramie. The highway stretched ahead of me, 2 lanes in each direction, separated by a wide median. At this hour, traffic was light. A few semi-trucks, an occasional passenger vehicle, nothing unusual. My headlights illuminated the white fog line and the reflective markers that glowed briefly as I passed them. The wind buffeted my vehicle, creating a low howl that was constant background noise. Occasionally, a gust would hit hard enough to push the Explorer sideways slightly, requiring a correction on the steering wheel. Not dangerous, just annoying. Standard Wyoming winter conditions. Mile markers ticked by. 215, 220, 225. I maintained a steady speed, scanning the highway and shoulders for any problems. Disabled vehicles, debris on the road, wildlife. My eyes moved in a practiced pattern. Road ahead. Left shoulder, mirrors, right shoulder, back to road ahead. Repeat. Around 11:30 p.m., I passed mile marker 117. I'd driven past that marker thousands of times over the years. It was unremarkable, just a green rectangular sign with white numbers, identical to every other mile marker on the interstate. There was nothing special about the location. No exits nearby, no rest areas, no scenic overlooks, just highway and prairie on both sides. But as I passed it that night, I felt something, a brief sensation, like déjà vu, or like walking through a cold spot in a warm room. It lasted maybe half a second, then passed. I shook it off. Probably just fatigue or the wind affecting my perception. I'd been up since 7 o'clock a.m. and wouldn't be off shift until 6 a.m. Long nights could mess with your head. I continued west, eventually reaching Laramie around 12:45 a.m. I stopped at a truck stop to refuel and grab coffee. Everything was normal. I exchanged nods with a couple of truckers, checked my equipment, and headed back east on I-80 toward Rawlins. At 1:38 a.m., As I was approaching mile marker 117 from the west, the radio crackled. Unit 23, this is dispatch. We have a report of a possible accident at mile marker 117, eastbound lanes. Caller reported seeing debris on the highway. Can you respond? I keyed my mic. Dispatch, Unit 23. Copy that. I'm approximately 3 miles west of that location. ETA about 2 minutes. Any additional details on the debris? Negative 23. Callers stated they saw something on the road. Couldn't identify what it was, but thought it might be from a vehicle accident. No visual on any disabled vehicles. 10 or en route. I increased my speed, activating my emergency lights. Within 2 minutes, I was approaching mile marker 117. I slowed down, scanning the road and shoulders carefully. Nothing. No debris, no accident, no disabled vehicles. The road was completely clear. I made a U-turn at the next authorized crossover and headed back, checking the westbound lanes. Still nothing. I pulled onto the shoulder near mile marker 117 and stepped out with my flashlight, examining the road surface and the surrounding area. The pavement was clean. No skid marks, no fluid stains, no broken glass or vehicle parts. The shoulders were undisturbed, just snow and dead grass. If there had been debris here, it was gone now. Maybe blown away by the wind, or maybe the caller had been mistaken about the location. I keyed my radio. Dispatch, Unit 23. On scene at mile marker 117. No debris visible, no signs of an accident. Road is clear. Possible false report or debris already cleared. Copy that, 23. Do you need any additional information from the caller? Affirmative. Can you provide a description of what they saw? There was a pause. I could hear Angela typing on her keyboard. 23, the caller stated they saw what looked like vehicle parts scattered across the eastbound lanes. Specifically mentioned seeing metal fragments and possibly glass, but they were traveling at highway speed and only saw it briefly in their headlights. Copy. Well, there's nothing here now. I've checked both lanes and the shoulders. Whatever they saw, it's not here anymore. 10-4, 23. Clear the call and resume patrol. Copy that. I got back in my vehicle and continued my patrol route. The wind had picked up, and blowing snow was starting to reduce visibility in spots. Not enough to warrant closing the highway, but enough to require caution. Over the next 2 hours, I drove my sector twice. West to Laramie, back east to Rawlins, then west again. Each time I passed mile marker 117, I slowed down and checked carefully. The road remained clear. No debris, no problems. At 3:52 a.m., the radio crackled again. Unit 23, dispatch. We have another report of debris on I-80 eastbound at mile marker 117. Caller reports vehicle parts on the road. Can you respond? I felt a small knot form in my stomach, the same location, the same description. 2 different callers reporting the same thing, and I'd found nothing both times. Dispatch, Unit 23. Copy that. I'm currently about 12 miles west of that location. ETA approximately 8 minutes. Can you confirm this is a different caller than the previous report? Affirmative, 23. This is a new call. Different phone number, different reporting party. Copy, en route. I increased my speed, watching the mile markers count down. 129, 125, 120. As I approached mile marker 117, I slowed to about 40 miles per hour, my spotlight sweeping across both lanes and the shoulders. Still nothing. The road was completely clear. I pulled onto the shoulder and stopped exactly at mile marker 117. Got out with my flashlight and walked along the roadway, examining every inch. I spent 20 minutes checking the area, looking for anything that might have been missed. Nothing. Not a single piece of debris. Not even the usual highway trash. No fast food bags, no tire fragments, no blown-out retreads from semi-trucks. The road was pristine. I radioed dispatch. Unit 23, on scene at mile marker 117. No debris located. Road is clear. This is the second report for the same location with identical descriptions, but I'm finding nothing. Can you provide callback information for the reporting party? Stand by, 23. I waited, standing on the shoulder, wind cutting through my uniform despite my heavy coat. The highway was empty, no traffic in either direction. Just me, the wind, and the darkness. 23, I'm looking at the call log now. The callback number shows as... That's odd. What's odd, dispatch? The callback number is listed as blocked, and the caller hung up immediately after providing the information. No name, no vehicle description, no direction of travel. Just the location and description of debris. That's unusual. What about the first caller from earlier tonight? More typing. Then a long pause. 23, the first call also shows as blocked number. Caller hung up immediately. I didn't notice that at the time. I was handling multiple calls. But looking at it now, the two calls have very similar characteristics. Almost identical, actually. I felt the hairs on the back of my neck stand up. Two anonymous calls, hours apart, reporting the exact same thing at the exact same location, and nothing there either time. Dispatch, what's the chance these are prank calls? Someone with a police scanner calling in false reports? It's possible, 23, but that would be a pretty dedicated prank. Why target such a specific location, and why call twice with the same story? I don't know, but I'm not finding anything here. I'm going to continue patrol. If we get any more calls for mile marker 117, let me know immediately. 10-4-23. I got back in my vehicle and sat there for a moment, thinking. Something felt wrong. Not dangerous necessarily, but wrong. Like pieces of a puzzle that didn't quite fit together. I pulled back onto the highway and continued east. As I drove away from mile marker 117, I checked my rearview mirror. The marker was illuminated briefly by my taillights, then disappeared into the darkness behind me. At 4:41 a.m., I passed mile marker 117 again, this time heading west. I slowed down out of habit, checking the road. Still clear. I accelerated back to patrol speed and continued toward Laramie. At 5:03 a.m., the radio crackled for the third time. Unit 23, dispatch. Report of debris on I-80 eastbound, mile marker 117. Vehicle parts on the roadway. Can you respond? My hands tightened on the steering wheel. 3 times. The same location, the same description. 3 different times. Dispatch, this is the third call for that location tonight. I've responded twice already and found nothing. Are you sure these are legitimate calls? 23, I understand your concern, but I have a reporting party on the line right now. They're adamant they just drove past debris at mile marker 117. They said it looked like a serious accident had occurred. Dispatch, I was at that location less than 20 minutes ago. There was nothing there. Copy that, 23, but the caller is insistent. They sound genuine. I need you to check one more time. I took a deep breath. 10-4, dispatch. En route to mile marker 117. I made a U-turn and headed back east. I was about 15 miles west of the location, which meant roughly 10 minutes of driving. As I traveled, I tried to think through what could be happening. Possibility 1. Debris was actually there, but kept getting blown off the road by the wind between the time the callers saw it and the time I arrived. But that didn't explain why I never saw any trace of it. No skid marks, no gouges in the pavement, nothing. Possibility 2. The callers were seeing something that wasn't actually debris. Maybe shadows cast by the mile marker sign, or wind-blown snow creating an optical illusion. But 3 different callers making the same mistake seemed unlikely. Possibility 3. Someone was pranking us, calling in false reports to waste my time. But again, why this specific location? And why the same description every time? Possibility 4. Something else. Something I couldn't explain with rational thinking. I didn't like possibility 4. Mile markers counted down. 125, 120, 118, 117. I slowed to a crawl as I approached, my spotlight illuminating every inch of the roadway. The eastbound lanes were clear. The westbound lanes were clear. The shoulders were clear. Everything was, wait, there, right at the edge of my spotlight's range, maybe 200 feet ahead. Something on the road. I felt my pulse quicken. Finally. Actual debris. Proof that the callers weren't crazy or pranking us. I activated my emergency lights and slowed even further, approaching carefully. As I got closer, the shape became clearer. It was metallic, reflecting my headlights. About 3 feet long, lying across the right lane. I stopped about 50 feet away and grabbed my flashlight. As I stepped out of the vehicle, I could see it more clearly. It was a bumper, a chrome bumper from what looked like a passenger car, bent and twisted. I approached it cautiously, checking for any other debris or signs of a recent accident. The bumper was lying perpendicular to the traffic flow, as if it had fallen off a vehicle or been thrown from one. But there were no other parts nearby. No broken glass, no fluid stains, no skid marks. Just this one bumper. I keyed my radio. Dispatch, Unit 23. I have located debris at mile marker 117. Appears to be a vehicle bumper, possibly from a sedan. No other debris visible, no signs of a recent accident. I'm going to move it off the roadway. Copy that, 23. Any identifying marks on the bumper? License plate or vehicle identification. I bent down to examine it more closely. The bumper was old, chrome with some rust. The mounting brackets were bent and broken. I used my flashlight to check for any identifying features. Negative, dispatch, no plate, no visible VIN. Looks like it's been out here for a while based on the condition. Might have been here for days or weeks, but the callers just happened to notice it tonight. Copy, dispose of it safely and clear the call. 10-4. I grabbed the bumper. It was heavier than I expected, and carried it to the shoulder. I'd call the maintenance crew in the morning to collect it. For now, at least it was off the road. As I walked back to my vehicle, I paused at mile marker 117. I looked at the sign, then at the empty highway stretching in both directions. Something still felt off, but I couldn't put my finger on what. I shook my head and got back in the patrol car. At least I'd found something this time. That was more than I could say for the previous 2 calls. I radioed dispatch to clear the call and resumed patrol. The sun would be rising in about an hour, and my shift would end shortly after that. I was looking forward to going home, getting some sleep, and forgetting about mile marker 117. At 5:47 a.m., just as the eastern horizon was starting to lighten, the radio crackled one more time. Unit 23, dispatch. Report of debris at mile marker 117, eastbound lanes. Caller describes vehicle parts on the roadway. I stared at the radio in disbelief. Dispatch, I just cleared that location 20 minutes ago. I removed the debris myself. There's nothing there. Copy, 23. But we have a new caller reporting the same issue. I need you to check again. I felt frustration rising. Dispatch, with all due respect, I've responded to this location 4 times tonight. I've found debris once, a single bumper that I removed. There is nothing else there. These calls are either pranks or the callers are mistaken. Angela's voice came back, and I could hear the strain in it. She was frustrated too. 23, I understand. But I have to log these calls, and I have to send someone to check. You're the only unit in the area. I need you to respond one more time, document what you find, and then I'll flag this location for possible prank calls. Fair enough? I took a breath. She was right. This was the job. 10-4, dispatch, en route. I turned around and headed back to mile marker 117 for the 5th time that night. As I drove, I noticed something strange. The eastern sky was getting lighter. Dawn was coming. But the area around mile marker 117 seemed darker than it should be, like there was a pocket of night that the approaching day hadn't reached yet. Probably just my imagination, or the result of being awake for nearly 24 hours. I reached mile marker 117 and pulled onto the shoulder. Before I even got out, I could see something on the road. The bumper. The same chrome bumper I'd removed 20 minutes ago was back in the middle of the eastbound lane, in the exact same position, lying perpendicular to traffic flow. I sat in my vehicle, staring at it, trying to make sense of what I was seeing. I'd picked up that bumper. I'd carried it to the shoulder. I'd set it down about 50 feet from where it had been, and now it was back on the road, in the exact same spot. Someone had to have moved it. But who? I'd been the only person on this stretch of highway. No other vehicles had passed me. I would have seen them. Unless someone had been waiting nearby, watching, moving the bumper back onto the road as soon as I left. But why? What would be the point? I grabbed my flashlight and stepped out of the vehicle. As I approached the bumper, I felt that sensation again. The same cold spot feeling I'd experienced the first time I passed mile marker 117 tonight. But stronger now, like the temperature had dropped 10 degrees in a localized area. I knelt down and examined the bumper. It looked identical to the one I'd moved earlier. Same chrome, same rust patterns, same bent mounting brackets. I picked it up and carried it to the shoulder again, this time placing it farther away, at least 75 feet from the road. Then I did something that probably wasn't standard procedure. I went back to my vehicle, grabbed my phone, and took several photos of the bumper in its new location. I wanted documentation, proof of where I'd put it. I returned to my patrol car and radioed dispatch. Unit 23, on scene at mile marker 117. Found the same bumper I removed earlier back on the road. I've removed it again and documented the location. Dispatch, something weird is going on here. Either someone is moving this bumper back onto the road or I don't know what. Copy that, 23. Can you stay in the area for a few minutes, observe the location and see if anyone approaches? Affirmative. I'll maintain position. I parked on the shoulder with a clear view of both the bumper and mile marker 117. I shut off my engine and just watched. The wind continued to howl and the eastern sky grew lighter. Traffic was starting to pick up. A few early morning commuters, trucks starting their routes. I sat there for 15 minutes. Nobody approached the bumper. Nothing unusual happened. The debris stayed exactly where I'd placed it. At 6:15 a.m., my shift officially ended. Angela radioed to let me know the next shift had started, and I was clear to return to the station. Copy that, dispatch. Unit 23 heading back to Rollins. But I want to file a formal report about mile marker 117. Something isn't right about that location. Understood, 23. Sergeant Holloway's in the station now. You can brief him when you return. I took one last look at mile marker 117, then pulled back onto the highway and headed east toward Rollins. In my rearview mirror, I watched the mile marker recede into the distance. The bumper was still on the shoulder where I'd left it. For now. I got back to the station at 6:42 a.m., tired and confused. Sergeant Tyler Holloway was in his office, going through paperwork. He was in his early 50s, gray-haired, with the weathered look of someone who'd spent decades dealing with Wyoming winters. Good cop, fair boss, didn't tolerate nonsense but would listen when something was genuinely wrong. I knocked on his door frame. "Sarge, you got a minute?" He looked up and waved me in. "Dalton, heard you had an interesting night. Angela mentioned something about multiple calls to the same location." I sat down and walked him through everything. The 5 calls to mile marker 117, the descriptions of debris that I couldn't find, the single bumper that appeared, disappeared, and reappeared, the blocked phone numbers, the identical nature of the calls. He listened without interrupting, his expression neutral. When I finished, he leaned back in his chair. "You think someone's pranking us?" That was my first thought. But I can't figure out the motive. Why that specific location? And how would they move the bumper back onto the road without me seeing them? I was the only unit in that area all night. Could have been hidden nearby, waited for you to leave, then moved it back. Possible. But why go to all that effort? And the calls, 5 different calls, all describing the same thing. If it's a prank, it's a really elaborate one. Holloway nodded slowly. "Okay, here's what we'll do. I'll have the day shift keep an eye on mile marker 117. See if anything else shows up. I'll also pull the call recordings and see if we can identify anything unusual about the callers. In the meantime, you write up a detailed report documenting everything. Times, observations, photos if you have them." I took photos of the bumper, I said, pulling out my phone. "Want me to email them to you?" "Yeah, do that. And Dalton, get some rest. You've been up for a full day. Come back tonight fresh and we'll see if this thing continues." I nodded and stood up. "Thanks, Sarge." "One more thing," he said as I reached the door. "Mile marker 117. That location mean anything to you? Any history there?" I thought about it. "Not that I know of. It's just highway, middle of nowhere. Why?" "Just curious. I've been with the patrol for 26 years and I can't recall any major incidents at that specific location. No fatal accidents, no significant events, but sometimes places develop reputations, spots where weird things happen. You think this is one of those spots?" He shrugged. "I think it's worth looking into. Go home, rest. We'll figure this out." I left the station and drove home to my apartment in Rollins. I should have been exhausted, but my mind was racing. I couldn't stop thinking about mile marker 117 and that bumper appearing in the exact same spot twice. I tried to sleep, but every time I closed my eyes, I saw that mile marker sign. The green rectangle with white numbers, 117, over and over. Around 2:00 p.m., I gave up on sleep and opened my laptop. I started researching mile marker 117 on I-80 in Wyoming. I pulled up maps, satellite images, historical data. Anything I could find. The location was unremarkable, high prairie on both sides of the highway. No buildings, no exits, no points of interest. The nearest town was over 30 miles away. The satellite images showed nothing unusual, just highway and grassland. I expanded my search to accident reports and incident logs. I went back 5 years searching for any calls or reports associated with mile marker 117 or the immediate area around it. That's when I found something interesting. 3 years ago, there had been a fatal accident approximately half a mile east of mile marker 117. A single vehicle crash. A sedan had left the roadway at high speed, rolled multiple times, and the driver was killed instantly. The report listed the cause as likely drowsy driving. The accident occurred at 3:45 a.m., and there were no skid marks or signs of evasive action. The driver had simply drifted off the road. I read through the report carefully. The victim's name was Brandon Cole, age 34, from Laramie. He'd been traveling alone. Toxicology came back negative. No alcohol, no drugs. Just a tired driver who fell asleep at the wheel. Sad, but not unusual. It happened several times a year on Wyoming highways. What caught my attention was a note in the report from the investigating officer. It was a small detail, almost an afterthought. Vehicle's front bumper was not located at the scene. May have detached during the rollover and been thrown a significant distance. Search of the surrounding area did not recover the bumper. The bumper was never found. I sat back, staring at the screen. A fatal accident 3 years ago, less than a mile from mile marker 117, and the bumper from that accident was never recovered. Was the bumper I'd found the same one? The report had described the vehicle as an older model sedan with a chrome bumper. That matched what I'd seen. But that raised more questions than it answered. If the bumper had been missing for 3 years, where had it been? And why was it suddenly appearing on the road at mile marker 117, exactly where multiple callers were reporting debris? I needed more information. I pulled up the case file number and made a note to ask Sergeant Holloway about it. Maybe there were details not included in the official report. I tried to sleep again, managed about 3 hours of restless dozing, then got up and prepared for my next shift. I arrived at the station at 9:30 p.m., half an hour before shift start. Holloway was still there, pulling a double. He waved me into his office. Day shift reported back, he said. They checked mile marker 117 3 times during their shift. No debris, no calls, nothing unusual. The bumper you removed was still on the shoulder where you left it. One of the deputies took photos and measured its exact position. We'll see if it moves again tonight. Did you pull the call recordings? He nodded, turning his computer monitor toward me. Listen to this. He played the audio from the first call. A voice, male, middle-aged, reporting debris at mile marker 117. The voice was calm, factual, describing vehicle parts on the road. Then the line went dead. Blocked number, untraceable, Holloway said. Now, listen to the second call. He played it, another male voice different from the first but the same calm, factual tone. Describing the same debris, then the line went dead. Third call, Holloway said. Same pattern, different voice, same description, line goes dead. You hear anything unusual? He asked. I listened to all 3 recordings again, paying closer attention. They sound scripted, like they're reading from a prepared statement, and the background noise. There's no traffic sound, no wind, nothing. It's too quiet for someone calling from a vehicle on the highway. That's what I noticed too. These aren't normal calls. Someone is calling in deliberately, providing just enough information to trigger a response, then hanging up before we can ask questions. Why? That's what we need to figure out. He pulled up a file on his computer. I also looked into the history of that location. Found the accident report from 3 years ago. Vehicle lost its bumper in the crash. Bumper was never found. You think the bumper you found tonight is the same one? It matches the description, but that doesn't make sense. Where has it been for 3 years, and why is it showing up now? Holloway leaned back in his chair, choosing his words carefully. I called the officer who investigated that accident. Retired now, living in Cheyenne. He remembered the case. Said there was something odd about it that never made it into the official report. What? He said Brandon Cole's GPS log showed something strange. Cole had been driving that same route, Laramie to Rollins, regularly for his job. But on the night of his accident, his GPS showed him passing mile marker 117 multiple times. Like he was looping, passing the same point over and over. The officer thought it was a GPS malfunction, so he didn't include it in the report, but he said it bothered him. I felt a chill run down my spine. He was looping? Like he couldn't get past that location. That's what the GPS suggested, but the officer figured it was just a technical glitch. The accident happened half a mile east of there, so he assumed Cole had eventually broken whatever loop he was in, then fell asleep and crashed. Or whatever was causing the loop caused him to crash. Holloway gave me a long look. That's a pretty big logical leap, Dalton. I know, but think about it. 5 calls tonight, all to the same location. A bumper that keeps reappearing in the same spot. A fatal accident 3 years ago where the victim's GPS showed him looping near the same location. These things are connected. Maybe, or maybe it's a series of coincidences and we're seeing patterns that aren't there. You don't really believe that. He sighed. No, I don't. But I also don't have a rational explanation for what's happening. So here's what we're going to do. You're going to run your normal patrol tonight. If you get called to mile marker 117 again, you respond, you document everything, and you report back to me. But you stay safe. You don't take any unnecessary risks. Understood? Understood. And Dalton, keep your head on straight. It's easy to start seeing things that aren't there when you're looking for them. I nodded and left his office. Angela was at the dispatch console, setting up for the night shift. She gave me a sympathetic smile. Heard you had a weird night last night. That's putting it mildly. Let's hope tonight is quieter. From your lips to God's ears, she said. My shift started at 10 o'clock p.m. I ran the same patrol route as the previous night, westbound on I-80 from Rawlins toward Laramie. The weather was similar, clear and cold, with strong winds creating occasional ground blizzards. For the first 2 hours, everything was routine. Normal traffic, no incidents, no calls. I passed mile marker 117 twice, once westbound, once eastbound, and both times the road was clear. The bumper was still on the shoulder where I'd left it 24 hours ago. At 12:23 a.m., the radio crackled. Unit 23, dispatch. Report of debris at mile marker 117, eastbound lanes. Vehicle parts on the roadway. Can you respond? Here we go again. Copy that, dispatch. En route to mile marker 117. I was about 8 miles west of the location. As I drove, I tried to prepare myself mentally. Stay rational. Document everything. Don't jump to conclusions. I reached mile marker 117 and slowed down. My spotlight swept across the roadway. The bumper was back on the road. Same location, same position. Lying perpendicular to traffic flow in the right lane. I pulled onto the shoulder and sat for a moment, collecting my thoughts. Then I grabbed my phone and checked the photos I'd taken the previous night. The bumper had been on the shoulder, 75 feet from the road. I got out and walked to where the bumper should have been. It was gone from the shoulder, and it was back on the road. I radioed dispatch. Unit 23 on scene. The bumper is back on the road. Same location as last night. I'm going to document it before moving it. Copy, 23. Take your time. I photographed the bumper from multiple angles, noting its exact position. Then I measured the distance from the mile marker sign. 47 feet. The same distance as last night, within a foot or two. I picked up the bumper and examined it closely. Same chrome, same rust, same bent mounting brackets. I took more photos, then carried it back to the shoulder. This time, I placed it even farther away, a full 100 feet from the road. As I set it down, I noticed something I'd missed before. Scratched into the chrome, barely visible under the rust, were some numbers, 7 to 2321. A date, July 23rd, 2021. the date of Brandon Cole's accident. I took a close-up photo of the numbers, then returned to my vehicle. I radioed dispatch and asked her to confirm the date of the Cole accident. "Stand by, 23. I waited, watching the empty highway. No traffic in either direction. Just me, the wind, and mile marker 117. 23 confirmed. The accident was July 23rd, 2021. How did you know? The bumper has that date scratched into it. This is definitely the bumper from Cole's vehicle. Copy that. Do you want me to contact the sergeant? Negative. I'll update him at end of shift. I'm going to maintain position here for a while, see if anything else happens. 10-4-23, I'll be here if you need me." I sat in my vehicle, engine idling, watching. The eastern sky was completely dark. We were in the deepest part of night, that stretch between midnight and dawn when the world feels empty. After 20 minutes, nothing had changed. The bumper remained on the shoulder. No other debris appeared. No vehicles passed. I decided to continue my patrol. I pulled back onto the highway and headed east toward Rollins. In my mirror, I watched mile marker 117 disappear behind me. At 1:47 a.m., I reached the easternmost point of my sector and turned around. As I headed back west, I radioed dispatch. "Unit 23, dispatch. I'm heading westbound, passing mile marker 220. How many miles to 117? "Stand by, 23. A pause. "That would be 103 miles. "Copy that." I drove at normal patrol speed, around 70 miles per hour. It would take me roughly an hour and a half to reach mile marker 117 from my current position. I passed mile markers steadily. 20, 215, 210, 205. Traffic was minimal. A few trucks, one or two passenger vehicles. The wind continued to buffet my Explorer, but visibility was good. At 2:14 a.m., I passed mile marker 200, 17 miles to go. At 2:28 a.m., I passed mile marker 190, 7 miles to go. At 2:35 a.m., I passed mile marker 180. Wait. I checked my GPS. According to it, I was at mile marker 185, but I just passed a sign that said 180. I slowed down and watched for the next marker. It appeared in my headlights. Mile marker 175. My GPS still showed 185. Something was wrong. Either the mile markers were wrong, or my GPS was wrong, or I saw it ahead. Mile marker 117. But that was impossible. I'd been at mile marker 180 30 seconds ago. I couldn't have covered 63 miles in half a minute. I slowed to a crawl as I approached. The sign was clearly marked, mile marker 117. And on the road ahead, in the right lane, was the bumper. My heart was pounding. This wasn't right. This wasn't possible. I radioed dispatch, trying to keep my voice steady. "Dispatch, Unit 23. Can you confirm my current location via GPS? Stand by, 23. A pause. I'm showing you at approximately mile marker 185 westbound lanes. Dispatch, I'm looking at a mile marker sign that says 117. That can't be right, 23. According to our system, you've been traveling westbound for the last 20 minutes at normal speed. You shouldn't be anywhere near mile marker 117. I'm telling you. I'm looking right at it." A longer pause. I could hear concern in Angela's voice when she responded, 23, are you sure? Could it be a different marker that looks similar? I got out of my vehicle and walked to the sign. Green rectangle, white numbers, 117. Dispatch, it's definitely mile marker 117, and the bumper is back on the road. That's not possible. You moved that bumper over an hour ago, and you shouldn't even be at that location yet. I stood there, flashlight in hand, staring at the mile marker. The wind howled around me, and somewhere in my mind, a thought formed that I didn't want to acknowledge. I was caught in a loop, just like Brandon Cole had been 3 years ago, just like his GPS had shown, passing the same point over and over, unable to progress past it. I keyed my radio. "Dispatch, I think I'm experiencing the same thing that happened to Brandon Cole. My GPS doesn't match my location. I'm somehow back at mile marker 117 even though I should be miles away from it." 23, that doesn't make sense. You need to static. The radio cut out mid-sentence. I tried again. "Dispatch, do you copy?" Nothing but static. I checked my phone, no signal. I was alone at mile marker 117, with no communication and no way to explain how I'd gotten here. The bumper was still lying on the road, 47 feet from the mile marker sign. Chrome and rust, bent mounting brackets, and a date scratched into the metal. 7/23/21, the date. Brandon Cole died. I looked at my watch. 2:37 a.m. I looked at my vehicle's dashboard clock. 2:37 a.m. Then I noticed something else. In the distance, heading east toward me, I could see headlights. A vehicle approaching. As it got closer, I could see it was a sedan. Older model, dark colored. It passed me, moving at highway speed, and I caught a glimpse of the driver. A man, alone, looking tired. The vehicle continued east, its taillights disappearing into the darkness. I stood there, waiting. The wind continued. The highway remained empty. Then, after maybe 5 minutes, I saw headlights again. From the east, a vehicle approaching. Same sedan, same driver, same tired expression. It passed me again, heading east. 5 minutes later, it passed again. And again, and again. The same vehicle, the same driver, passing me over and over, heading east, always at the same speed, always with the same tired expression behind the wheel. I was watching Brandon Cole drive toward his death. Over and over. Trapped in a loop that had started 3 years ago and never ended. And somehow I'd become trapped in it with him. I don't know how long I stood there watching that sedan pass. 5 times, 10, 20, I lost count. Each time it was identical. Same speed, same tired driver, same empty highway stretching behind it into darkness. I wanted to flag it down, to warn the driver, but I knew it wouldn't matter. This wasn't really happening now. This was an echo, a recording, a loop playing out the final moments of Brandon Cole's life over and over. The radio remained silent. My phone showed no signal. I was isolated in a pocket of time and space centered on mile marker 117. I tried walking away from the location, heading east along the shoulder. I walked for what felt like 15 minutes, checking my GPS periodically. According to the device, I was moving. Mile marker 118, then 119, then 120. But when I turned around to look back, mile marker 117 was still directly behind me, maybe 50 feet away. Distance had become meaningless here. I returned to my patrol vehicle and tried to think rationally. There had to be an explanation. Maybe I was experiencing carbon monoxide poisoning from a faulty exhaust system. Maybe I'd fallen asleep at the wheel, and this was a dream. Maybe I'd been in an accident and was hallucinating while unconscious. But it all felt too real, too consistent, too detailed. I opened my laptop, the MDT computer terminal, and tried to access the dispatch system. The screen was frozen, showing my last logged position at mile marker 185. I tried to type, tried to update, tried to send any kind of message. Nothing responded. Then I noticed something on the screen. In the corner, partially hidden behind an error message window, was a file I hadn't seen before. The file name was simply 117. I clicked on it. The file opened to reveal a text document. It appeared to be a series of dispatch logs, but they were dated from different years. August 14, 2019. Unit 17 reported GPS malfunction near mile marker 117. Unit looped location 3 times before regaining proper navigation. November 3, 2020. Multiple calls reporting debris at mile marker 117. No debris found on scene. July 23, 2021. Fatal accident. Eastbound lanes, 0.5 miles past mile marker 117. Victim: Brandon Cole, age 34. GPS log shows victim passed mile marker 117 repeatedly prior to crash. February 9, 2022. Unit 31 reported time distortion at mile marker 117. Cleared scene, no issues found. Unit 31 later filed for psychological evaluation and transferred to day shift. September 27, 2023. Dispatch received 14 calls in one night reporting debris at mile marker 117. All calls traced to block numbers. No debris found. And then, at the bottom of the document, February 18, 2025. Unit 23 Dalton reported multiple incidents at mile marker 117. Status unresolved. That was tonight. Today. Right now. Someone had been documenting this. Someone knew that mile marker 117 was a problem location, had been for years. But why hadn't anyone warned us? Why wasn't this information in the official files? I grabbed my phone and took photos of the screen, then closed the file. As soon as I did, it disappeared. I searched for it again, checking every folder on the system. Gone. Like it had never existed. But I had the photos, proof that I wasn't losing my mind. I stepped out of the vehicle again, needing to move, to do something. The sedan passed me again. Same driver, same tired expression. I tried counting the seconds between passes. Exactly 4 minutes and 37 seconds, like clockwork. Then something different happened. As the sedan passed, I heard a sound. Not from the vehicle itself, but from somewhere nearby. A scraping noise, metal on pavement. I turned toward the sound. The bumper, which had been lying in the road 47 feet from the mile marker, was moving. Not being blown by wind. Not being dragged by anything visible. Just sliding across the pavement on its own. Slowly, deliberately, moving from the road back toward the shoulder. I watched, frozen, as it slid past me and came to rest exactly where I'd placed it an hour ago. Then it stopped moving. A few seconds later, it began sliding again, back toward the road, back to its position 47 feet from the mile marker sign. It was resetting. The entire scene was resetting, like a video loop returning to its starting point. I checked my watch, 2:37 a.m., the same time it had been when I first arrived at this location during the loop. Time wasn't moving forward. Or it was moving, but then resetting over and over. I needed to break the cycle, but how? I thought about what I knew. Brandon Cole had been trapped in this loop 3 years ago. His GPS showed him passing mile marker 117 repeatedly. Eventually, he'd made it past. The accident happened half a mile east, but something in that process had killed him. Maybe the strain of breaking free. Maybe something else. Unit 31 in 2022 had reported time distortion, but had managed to leave. They'd transferred to day shift afterward and requested psych evaluation. That suggested they'd escaped, but had been traumatized by the experience. So it was possible to get out. But how? I walked to mile marker 117 and examined it closely. Just a standard highway marker. Green aluminum sign with white reflective numbers, mounted in 2 metal posts. Nothing unusual about it visually. I tried touching it. The metal was cold, as expected, but nothing happened. No shock, no sensation, no obvious anomaly. I walked to where the bumper lay on the road and examined it again. The date scratched into the chrome. 7/23/21. Cole's accident date. But why would someone scratch that date into the bumper? And when? Had Cole done it himself? Or had someone else marked it after the accident? I picked up the bumper and carried it off the road, placing it on the shoulder. Then I returned to my vehicle and drove east, away from mile marker 117. Mile markers passed. 118, 119, 120. My GPS confirmed I was moving. I drove for 5 miles, checking my position continuously. Mile marker 122. I was out. I'd broken the loop. Relief washed over me. I grabbed my radio. Dispatch, Unit 23. Do you copy? Static. I tried my phone. Still no signal. I kept driving. Mile marker 125. 130. 135. Then, ahead of me, I saw a green sign reflecting in my headlights. Mile marker 117. No, that wasn't possible. I'd been driving east. The numbers should be increasing, not decreasing. I checked my GPS. It showed me at mile marker 138 eastbound lanes. I checked the sign as I passed it. Definitely mile marker 117. I kept driving, faster now, watching the signs. The next one was 117. Then 117 again. Every mile marker I passed was 117, even though my GPS showed me traveling normally, mile markers counting up as they should. I slammed on my brakes and sat in the middle of the highway, breathing hard. The loop wasn't just at mile marker 117, the loop was everywhere. The entire highway had become mile marker 117. Or maybe I'd become so deeply trapped in the loop that I couldn't perceive anything else. I heard a sound behind me. Looking in my rearview mirror, I saw headlights, a vehicle approaching from the west. The sedan, Brandon Cole's sedan, but it was coming from the wrong direction now. It pulled up behind me and stopped. The driver's door opened. A man stepped out. He looked exactly like the tired driver I'd seen passing over and over. But now he was walking toward my vehicle, and his eyes were wrong. Too wide, too focused, like someone who hadn't blinked in a very long time. I put my patrol car in drive and accelerated, pulling away from him. In my mirror, I saw him standing in the middle of the highway watching me leave. He didn't try to follow, just stood there perfectly still as I drove away. A minute later, I saw him again, standing on the shoulder ahead of me, in the exact same position, arms at his sides, eyes too wide, perfectly still. As I passed, he turned his head to follow my movement, but his body didn't move. He appeared again, and again, always in the same position, always watching. I wasn't just seeing a loop of his drive. I was seeing him, or what was left of him. Trapped here, unable to leave, appearing over and over in this endless moment. I had to get out. I had to break free before I became like him, another ghost on this highway, appearing and reappearing, trapped in the same few miles for eternity. I drove faster, pushing the Explorer to 80, then 90, then over 100 miles per hour. The engine roared. The vehicle shook. Mile marker 117 flashed past over and over and over. Then, suddenly, the numbers changed. Mile marker 118. I nearly cried with relief. Progress. I was moving forward. The loop was breaking. My radio crackled. 23, do you copy? Unit 23, please respond. Angela's voice. Distorted and far away, but definitely her. I grabbed my mic. Dispatch, I copy. I'm at mile marker 121 eastbound. I was trapped in some kind of loop at mile marker 117. I'm free now. Unit 23, say again, you're breaking up. I said I'm free of the loop. I'm at mile marker 121. Static. Then her voice again, clearer now. Unit 23, you're showing on our system at mile marker 117. You've been stationary there for the last 45 minutes. Negative dispatch. I'm moving. I'm at mile marker 123 now. 23, our system disagrees. GPS shows you haven't moved. I looked at my own GPS. She was right. According to the vehicle's system, I was at mile marker 117, but the signs I was passing said otherwise. Which one was real? I kept driving. Mile markers continued to change. 125, 30, 135. The numbers were increasing normally now, but Angela kept insisting I was still at 117. Then I saw something that made me understand. Ahead, on the shoulder at mile marker 140, was my patrol vehicle. Unit 23, parked exactly where I'd been sitting an hour ago when this all started. And standing next to it was me. I was looking at myself. Same uniform, same build, same face. The other me was holding a flashlight, examining something on the road. The bumper. I slowed down as I approached. The other me didn't react to my headlights, didn't look up, just kept examining the bumper. I pulled onto the shoulder about 50 feet away and watched. The other me picked up the bumper and carried it to the shoulder, then walked back to the patrol vehicle, got in, and drove away. Exactly what I'd done earlier. I was watching my own loop, a recording of my actions, playing out while I was still trapped in the experience of living them. My radio crackled. Unit 23, please confirm your status. I keyed the mic slowly. Dispatch, I need you to listen carefully. Something is happening at mile marker 117 that I don't fully understand. But I think I'm caught in the same thing that caught Brandon Cole 3 years ago. My GPS might show me at 117, but I'm experiencing something else. Some kind of time loop or reality distortion. Unit 23, you're not making sense. Do you need medical assistance? No. I need you to send another unit to mile marker 117, but don't send them alone. Send at least 2 units and make sure they stay in constant radio contact. And Angela, document everything. Every call, every report, every anomaly. Someone has been tracking this, but it's not in the official files. There's a pattern here, and it's important. Copy that, 23. I'm dispatching Unit 19 and Unit 27 to your location. ETA 20 minutes. Don't tell them I'm at 117. Tell them to meet me at mile marker 140. That's where I actually am. A pause. Unit 23, our system clearly shows. I know what your system shows, but I'm telling you where I actually am. Trust me on this. Copy, 23. I'll route them to mile marker 140. I sat in my vehicle and waited. The eastern sky was starting to lighten. Dawn was approaching. I'd been on shift for 7 hours, and for at least 2 of those hours I'd been trapped in some kind of temporal anomaly. The other version of me, the one I'd seen examining the bumper, drove past, heading east. I watched my own taillights disappear into the pre-dawn darkness. 23 minutes later, I saw emergency lights approaching from the east. 2 patrol vehicles, units 19 and 27. They pulled up next to me, and 2 officers got out. I recognized both of them, Jackson Cole and Sarah Brennan. Good cops, experienced, level-headed. Jackson approached my window. "Dalton, you okay? Dispatch said you were having some kind of situation?" "Get in," I said, "both of you. We need to talk." They exchanged glances but climbed into my vehicle. Jackson in the passenger seat, Sarah in the back. I told them everything. The multiple calls to mile marker 117. The bumper that kept reappearing. The loop I'd experienced. Brandon Cole's accident. the file I'd found on my computer. When I finished, Jackson said carefully, "Dalton, that's a lot. Are you sure you're okay? Maybe you should head back to the station, let the medics check you out." "I'm not crazy, and I'm not hallucinating. Look." I showed them the photos on my phone. The bumper, the date scratched into it. The file from my computer showing years of incidents at mile marker 117. Sarah leaned forward, studying the photos. "That date. That's the date of the coal accident. I remember that case. I was working day shift when they found his vehicle." "Exactly. And his GPS showed him looping near mile marker 117 before he crashed. Same thing that happened to me tonight." Jackson pulled out his own phone and started searching through old reports. After a few minutes, he looked up. His expression changed. "Holy shit. There are reports, multiple reports over the past 6 years. GPS malfunctions at mile marker 117, unexplained calls, Unit 31's time distortion report in 2022. It's all here, but it's fragmented, filed under different categories, different case numbers, like someone deliberately scattered the information so no one would see the pattern. Or like the system itself is resisting documentation," I said. "That file I found disappeared as soon as I closed it. Like the system doesn't want us to know." "The system doesn't want us to know," Sarah said. "You're talking about the computer like it's alive. I don't know what it is, but something at mile marker 117 is wrong. Has been wrong for years, and we've been sending people there one at a time, and they either get trapped or they escape traumatized." Jackson nodded slowly. "Okay, so what do we do?" "We document everything properly. Official reports, multiple copies, filed under multiple case numbers. We make sure this information can't disappear, and we flag mile marker 117 as a hazard zone. No single unit responses, minimum 2 vehicles, constant communication." "Sergeant Holloway needs to hear this," Sarah said. "Agreed. Let's head back to the station. All 3 of us together. We'll brief him with everything we know." We left my vehicle on the shoulder. I didn't want to drive it anymore, didn't trust it, and rode together in Jackson's vehicle. As we drove east, I kept watching for mile marker 117, half expecting to see it again. But the numbers progressed normally. 140, 145, 150. We were moving forward in normal space and time. At 5:47 a.m., we reached the station in Rawlins. Holloway was already there, looking tired and concerned. "Dalton, dispatch said you had some kind of incident. What happened?" We sat in his office, all 3 of us, and I went through everything again. This time, Holloway didn't interrupt. He listened, his expression grave, occasionally taking notes. When I finished, he sat back and let out a long breath. "I believe you." "You do?" "I've been with the patrol for 26 years. I've seen a lot of strange things on these highways. Places where accidents cluster. Stretches of road where people report feeling uneasy. Locations where equipment malfunctions repeatedly. Most of it we chalk up to coincidence or environmental factors. But some of it doesn't have a rational explanation." He pulled a file from his desk drawer. "After you left yesterday, I did some digging. Found reports going back 15 years. Mile marker 117 has been a problem location for a long time. But every time someone tries to investigate it properly, the case gets closed, or the officer transfers, or the documentation goes missing. It's like the location protects itself." "So what do we do?" Jackson asked. Holloway thought for a moment. "We treat it like any other hazard. We mark it, we warn people, and we avoid it when possible. As of right now, mile marker 117 is flagged in our system as a no-stop zone." Any calls to that location get rerouted to day shift with mandatory multiple unit response. And we start documenting everything in a way that can't be ignored or hidden. Will that stop it? Sarah asked. I don't know, but it's the best we can do. I nodded, feeling the exhaustion finally catching up with me. There's one more thing. Brandon Cole. He's still there, or some version of him. Trapped in the loop, appearing over and over. If there's any way to help him, there isn't, Holloway said quietly. Whatever happened to him had happened 3 years ago. What you saw was an echo, a recording. You can't save someone who's already gone. I knew he was right, but it still felt wrong to leave Cole trapped there, endlessly driving toward his death. Go home, Holloway said. All of you, get some rest. We'll regroup tomorrow and figure out the next steps. We filed out of his office. As I headed toward my car, Sarah caught up with me. Dalton, for what it's worth, I believe you, and I'm glad you made it out. Thanks, but I'm not sure I did. Not completely. She frowned. What do you mean? I showed her my watch. It showed 2:37 a.m. It's been stuck at this time since I entered the loop. I've changed the battery, reset it, everything. It won't budge. She looked at her own watch, then at mine. That's unsettling. Yeah, I think part of me is still there. At mile marker 117, at 2:37 a.m., trapped in that moment. And I don't know if that part will ever escape. 6 weeks have passed since that night. I still work for Wyoming Highway Patrol, still work night shifts, but I requested a permanent sector change, and it was granted. I now patrol I-25 between Cheyenne and the Colorado border. I never drive I-80. I never go anywhere near mile marker 117. The official report on that night was filed under 3 different case numbers, with copies distributed to multiple departments. Sergeant Holloway personally ensured that the documentation couldn't be easily buried or lost. Mile marker 117 remains flagged as a hazard zone, and the protocols we established are still in effect. The calls stopped. For 6 weeks, dispatch hasn't received a single report of debris at mile marker 117. The location has been quiet. But I don't think it's over. My watch still shows 2:37 a.m. I've replaced it twice, bought different brands, tried digital and analog. Every watch I wear stops at 2:37 a.m. within a few days, like that time is following me, marking me, claiming me. I've also started experiencing something else. Time slips, I call them. Moments where I lose time without explanation. Last week, I was driving south on I-25. I checked my GPS at mile marker 45. Blinked. Checked again, and I was at mile marker 45. My dashboard clock showed that 5 minutes had passed, but I had no memory of those 5 minutes. No memory of the road I'd traveled, the mile markers I'd passed. It happened again 2 days ago. 7 minutes lost. Then again yesterday. 12 minutes. The gaps are getting longer. I haven't told anyone. What would I say? That I'm experiencing micro loops? That part of me is still trapped at mile marker 117, and it's pulling the rest of me back piece by piece? I've done research, tried to find similar cases, other locations where people reported time anomalies or spatial loops. There are stories scattered across the internet, usually dismissed as hoaxes or misunderstandings, but I recognize the patterns now. I know what's real and what isn't. There's a highway in Nevada where drivers report passing the same rest stop multiple times without turning around. A stretch of Route 66 where GPS systems consistently malfunction. A bridge in Louisiana where people lose hours without explanation. These places exist, and they're connected somehow. I can feel it. 2 weeks ago, I received an email. No sender name, just a generic Gmail address. The subject line was, "You saw the pattern." The email contained a single attachment, a map. It showed locations across the United States marked with red dots, hundreds of them. And each dot had a label, highway route and mile marker. I-80, mile marker 117 in Wyoming. That was there. But so were dozens of others. I-70 in Kansas, I-40 in New Mexico, Highway 11 in California. Each one marked as a loop point, with dates ranging from the 1960s to present day. The email had no message, no explanation, just the map. I printed it out and keep it in my truck. Sometimes I look at it trying to understand what connects these locations. Is it geography? Is it something about the highways themselves? Is it something older, predating the roads? I don't know. But I think about Sheriff Holloway's comment that I'd been with the patrol for only 4 years, but he'd been there for 26 and had seen strange things. How many of his years were actually experienced and how many were loops he didn't remember? How much time have all of us lost to these places without realizing it? Last night I had a dream. I was driving I-80, heading west. I passed mile marker 118, then 117. As I passed 117, I saw myself standing on the shoulder holding a flashlight examining a chrome bumper. The ME on the shoulder looked up and made eye contact with the me in the vehicle. And the ME on the shoulder smiled, then said, in a voice that didn't sound quite right, "You're late." I woke up at 2:37 a.m. I'm writing this now at 4:15 a.m. on March 28, 2025. I'm in my apartment in Cheyenne, off duty, drinking coffee I don't need because I can't sleep. But here's what scares me most. I just checked my phone to confirm the date and time. The clock on my phone says it's 2:37 a.m. on February 18, 2025. That's the night it happened, the night I got trapped at mile marker 117, but I remember 6 weeks passing. I remember working shifts, filing reports, requesting a transfer. I remember all of it. Or do I? What if I never left? What if I'm still at mile marker 117, experiencing a loop that feels like 6 weeks but is actually just the same few hours repeating? What if everything I remember since that night is just my mind creating a narrative to cope with being trapped? I don't know what's real anymore. I just looked out my window. It's dark outside. I can see a highway in the distance. And on that highway I can see a green mile marker sign. I'm too far away to read the number, but I know what it says. My watch reads 2:37 a.m. My phone reads 2:37 a.m. The clock on my microwave reads 2:37 a.m. Every clock in my apartment, no matter when I look at them, reads 2:37 a.m. I think I need to go back to mile marker 117 to finish whatever started that night. Maybe Brandon Cole is there, still driving that same loop, waiting for someone to break the cycle. Maybe if I go back, I can help him. Or maybe I'll just become another echo, another ghost on that highway, trapped forever in the same moment. But I can't keep living like this. Can't keep losing time, can't keep wondering what's real. So tonight, when my shift starts, I'm going to drive I-80. I'm going to head west from Rollins, and I'm going to stop at mile marker 117. One last time. If you're reading this, it means I left these notes behind. It means I didn't come back. Don't try to find me. Don't go to mile marker 117. Don't investigate what happened. Just know that some places on our highways aren't really places. They're traps, or portals, or breaks in reality. They look normal. They appear on maps and GPS systems. But they exist outside of normal time and space, and once they catch you, they might never let you go. I'm leaving copies of this account in multiple locations. In my apartment, in my locker at the station, attached to emails sent to Sergeant Holloway and several reporters. If I disappear, someone will find them. And maybe eventually someone will figure out what mile marker 117 really is. But it won't be me. My watch shows 2:37 a.m. It's time to go. My shift started at 11 p.m. on a Thursday in October. I was taking over Route 11 in northern Maine, 50 miles of rural highway between Ashland and Fort Kent. Dense forest, isolated farmland, freezing temperatures. I'd been with Maine State Police for 8 years, but this was my first night on this sector. The previous officer, Grant Parker, had requested an emergency transfer to day shift after 2 years on this route. The approval came unusually fast. Before I left the barracks, Sergeant Rita Walsh called me into her office. She looked exhausted. "Parker left notes for his replacement," she said, sliding a folder across her desk. "You should read them." The handwriting was shaky, almost frantic. "To whoever takes over this sector, something happens at night on Route 11, especially after midnight. Small things at first. Then they get bigger, more personal. Rules. 1. Don't stop at Route 11 and Bear Road intersection. 2. Don't look directly at the white farmhouse with green door at mile marker 32. 3. Don't use the rest area at mile marker 18 after dark. 4. If dispatch reports a suspicious person on the shoulder, do not stop. 5. You'll lose radio contact between 2-4 a.m. Don't panic. 6. Check your watch against your dashboard clock. If they don't match, leave immediately. 7. If you see another patrol vehicle that shouldn't be there, do not approach it. Just leave. This sector wants you to stay. Don't let it. Grant Parker." "Is this a joke?" I asked. Walsh shook her head. "Parker's a solid officer. 15 years, excellent record. But 3 weeks ago he broke down. Said the sector was doing something to him. We sent another officer for 2 nights. Nothing happened. But Parker isn't a liar. So what do I do with this? Keep an open mind, follow his suggestions if reasonable, report anything unusual." I left her office and drove to Route 11. My vehicle was a 2021 Dodge Charger, standard equipment. Dispatcher Kevin Morris checked me in at 11:23 p.m. The highway was dark and empty. Dense forest on both sides, bare branches reaching over the road. Traffic was almost non-existent. At 12:34 a.m., I approached the intersection with Bear Road. Parker's warning was clear. Don't stop. I slowed out of habit, checked both directions. Empty. Nothing unusual. I continued north. At 1:15 a.m., I passed mile marker 32. The white farmhouse with the green door. It looked abandoned, overgrown grass, boarded windows. As I passed, I felt a strong compulsion to look at it more closely. To slow down, pull over, examine it. I kept my eyes on the road and accelerated. In my mirror, I thought I saw a figure in an upstairs window. When I blinked, it was gone. I reached Fort Kent, turned around, headed back south. Uneventful return trip. At 2:12 a.m., dispatch called. Unit 14. Report of a suspicious person walking on Route 11 shoulder, mile marker 23. Individual in dark clothing, walking southbound. Can you respond? Parker's warning, do not stop. But that didn't make sense. Checking suspicious persons was the job. Copy that, dispatch, en route. I found the figure 50 yards ahead on the southbound shoulder. Standing perfectly still, facing the forest. Dark jacket, jeans, boots, not moving at all. State Police, can I help you? No response. No acknowledgement. Sir or ma'am, turn around and identify yourself. Nothing. I approached cautiously. 5 feet away, I realized no breathing sounds. No steam from breath in the cold air. Standing too perfectly still. I reached out to touch their shoulder. The figure turned around. Where there should have been a face, there was nothing. Not a mask. Just absence. Smooth, blank surface. My hand went to my sidearm. Before I could draw, the figure turned back toward the forest and walked into the trees. Slow, deliberate steps. Gone within seconds. I grabbed my flashlight and swept the tree line. Nothing. No movement, no footprints. I radioed, "Dispatch Unit 14. Suspicious person has left the scene. No contact made. Continuing patrol." "Copy, 14. Do you need backup?" "Negative." At 2:34 a.m., my radio cut out. Dead silence. Parker's warning. Between 2 o'clock a.m. and 4 o'clock a.m., you might lose radio contact. This is normal. I checked my watch, 2:34 a.m. Dashboard clock, 2:34 a.m. At least those matched. I continued south, completely isolated. No radio, no cell signal. At 2:51 a.m., I passed the white farmhouse again. I kept my eyes straight ahead. Then I heard it. A voice through my closed windows. Through the engine noise. "Dalton!" Clear as day. A woman's voice calling my name from that farmhouse. I didn't stop, didn't look. "Dalton, please," the voice called, more insistent. I pressed the accelerator, putting distance between myself and that house. At 3:14 a.m., I approached the rest area at mile marker 18. Parker's warning, "Don't use it after dark." There were vehicle lights in the parking lot. I slowed down to see. A Maine State Police patrol car, Unit 14, my unit number. I stopped in the middle of the highway, staring. That was impossible. I was in Unit 14. A figure stood next to it, a state trooper in uniform. Me. I was looking at myself, parked in a rest area I hadn't stopped at. Parker's final warning. If you see another patrol vehicle that shouldn't be there, do not approach it. Just leave. I accelerated past, not looking back. In my mirror, the rest area disappeared. At 4:03 a.m., my radio suddenly crackled back to life. "Unit 14, this is dispatch. Do you copy?" I grabbed the mic. "Dispatch, Unit 14, I copy. Radio has been out for the past hour and a half." "Copy that, 14. We lost your signal as well. Everything okay? Any incidents to report?" I thought about what to say. How do you report seeing a faceless person? Hearing your name called from an abandoned house and encountering a duplicate of your own patrol vehicle? "Negative dispatch, just routine patrol. Some equipment malfunction, but it's resolved now. 10-4, Unit 14. Continue patrol." I continued driving, checking my watch every few minutes, making sure time was progressing normally. 4:15 a.m., 4:23 a.m., 4:39 a.m. Everything seemed normal now. As dawn approached, the oppressive feeling that had dominated the night started to lift. The sky lightened gradually, going from black to dark blue to pale gray. The forest looked less menacing in the growing light, just trees and empty road. At 6:47 a.m., my shift officially ended. I drove back to the barracks in Caribou, exhausted and unsettled. Sergeant Walsh was in her office. She looked up as I entered and immediately frowned. "Dalton, you look like hell. Rough night?" I sat down heavily. "You could say that. Want to talk about it?" I pulled out Parker's notes and set them on her desk. He wasn't exaggerating. Everything he warned about happened. The faceless person, the voice from the farmhouse, the duplicate patrol car. All of it. She leaned back in her chair, studying my face. "Are you sure? Is it possible you were tired? Maybe your mind was playing tricks. I know what I saw. I'm not imagining this." She was quiet for a long moment. Then she pulled out a file from her desk drawer. Parker filed a report, an unofficial one. I buried it because I didn't know what else to do with it, but it describes the same things you're talking about." She slid the file across the desk. I opened it and found several pages of typed notes. Parker had documented everything: dates, times, specific incidents. The patterns were clear. The anomalies happened consistently between midnight and 4 o'clock a.m. They got worse over time, becoming more frequent and more personal. "How long did he patrol that route?" I asked. 23 months. By the end, he was filing these kinds of reports almost every night. But when we sent other officers to verify, they never experienced anything. It was like the sector was targeting Parker specifically. Or maybe it takes time. Maybe you have to patrol it long enough before it starts. She nodded slowly. That's what I'm worried about. What if this sector does something to people who patrol it regularly? What if it's not about mental health or fatigue, but about something actually wrong with that stretch of road? Then we need to investigate it properly. Send a team during the day, check for, I don't know, environmental factors, maybe underground gas leaks causing hallucinations, something rational. We did, 3 months ago, after Parker's first complaints. Environmental services found nothing unusual. No gas leaks, no electromagnetic anomalies, no geological factors that would explain what people are experiencing. I rubbed my eyes, feeling the exhaustion settling into my bones. So, what do we do? I'm taking you off that route, effective immediately. I'll cover it myself tonight, see what happens. You don't have to do that, I can handle another shift. You had your first night and you're already showing signs of stress. I'm not letting this sector claim another officer. You'll transfer to Route 1, covering the coastal route. Normal traffic, well-lit areas, nothing strange. Consider it a direct order. I wanted to argue, but part of me was relieved. The thought of going back to Route 11, of driving through that darkness again, of encountering those impossible things, it terrified me. What about you? If you patrol it tonight and experience the same things? She smiled grimly. Then we'll have confirmation from a sergeant, which might carry more weight. And if I experience nothing, then we'll know it's something specific about certain officers. Either way, we'll have more information. I nodded and stood up. Be careful, Sergeant. Always am. Now go home. Get some sleep. Report back tomorrow night for the Route 1 assignment. I returned to the barracks at 6:47 a.m. Sergeant Walsh listened to everything. The faceless figure, the voice, the duplicate patrol car. She pulled out a file. Parker filed an unofficial report. Same descriptions, same locations. The documentation showed patterns. Anomalies between midnight and 4 o'clock a.m., getting worse over time, increasingly personal. 23 months he patrolled this. By the end, reports almost every night, but other officers experienced nothing. Maybe it takes time, I said. She nodded. We sent environmental services 3 months ago. Found nothing. No gas leaks, no anomalies. So, what do we do? I'm taking you off Route 11. I'll cover it myself tonight. I wanted to argue, but relief washed over me. That afternoon, I researched. Found decades of scattered incidents. Equipment failures, officers feeling watched, figures appearing and disappearing. Then, a 1952 newspaper article. 3 construction worker deaths building the highway, all within mile markers 18 to 23. The same area. Walsh found more. Before the highway, this was Maliseet tribal land. They called it the boundary place, where the living world ends. Sacred ground they avoided. A 1920s survey said they believed the land was thin, where the barrier between worlds was weak. My phone buzzed. Unknown number. Don't go back. It's not done with you. Parker, Walsh said. That night at 11:47 p.m. she called. come back to the barracks, now." When I arrived, Parker was in the office with Walsh, Dr. Brennan from Psychiatric Services, and another man, Parker. Parker looked terrible. Weight loss, dark circles, shaking hands. Dr. Brennan interviewed me for an hour. My conclusion: you're mentally healthy, but the phenomena you describe, faceless figures, duplicate vehicles, voices, are classic stress-induced hallucinations. Parker experienced the same things, which could indicate genuine anomaly, or that the route is psychologically stressful in ways we don't understand. I visited Parker's apartment later. Papers everywhere, maps, articles, notes. "I've been researching," he said. "Route 11 isn't the only place. There are others. Places where reality is thin, where things slip through." He showed me maps with red circles. These are all places with similar reports. Indigenous peoples marked them as sacred or forbidden. Construction projects report unusual accidents. People who spend time there start to change. He pulled up his sleeve. A dark mark spread across his skin, like veins or tree branches. This appeared 3 months after I started Route 11. It grows every time I think about that highway. Eventually, it'll cover everything. And when it does, I'll disappear, just like Davis, just like the others. How do you stop it? I don't think you can. Once Route 11 has you, you're part of it. Eventually, you'll go back. My phone rang. Walsh. "Need you at the barracks." Back at the barracks, Walsh introduced Joseph Two Rivers, a Maliseet cultural consultant. "My people have known about that place for centuries," he said. "Kespeltumk, the place of thin boundaries. The barrier between our world and the spirit world is weak there, dangerous for the living. How do we close it?" He smiled sadly. "You don't. The boundary has always been thin there. All you can do is respect it, stay away, especially at night. We've built a highway through it. Then accept the cost. Places like Kespeltemk demand payment. Your missing officer won't be the last, unless you close that road." Walsh decided to patrol Route 11 herself that night with Officer Martinez. Despite my protests, she refused to back down. They left at 11 p.m. At 2:34 a.m., my phone rang. Unknown number. Static, then Walsh's voice, but wrong, flat, emotionless. Come back to Route 11. We're waiting." I called dispatch. Both units had gone silent at mile marker 23. I drove north with Officer Sarah Brennan following. We reached mile marker 23 at 1:47 a.m. Davis's patrol car sat on the shoulder, emergency lights flashing, door open. We searched his vehicle. Empty, radio, and flashlight on the seat, engine running. He'd left on foot. "Footprints leading into the forest," Sarah said. "Recent." "We call for backup first," I said. "We don't go into those woods alone." She radioed dispatch. While she called, I examined the tracks, deliberate, not fleeing. He'd walked purposefully into the trees. "Dalton!" Sarah's voice was sharp. She pointed across the highway. Through the trees, maybe 50 yards in, something moved. A figure. "Davis!" I called. The figure stopped, then turned toward us. The proportions were wrong. Movement too smooth. "That's not Davis," Sarah whispered. As it approached, I saw, faceless, solid black where eyes should be, waxy skin. "Back to the vehicles," I said. The figure reached the tree line and stopped, then spoke in Davis's voice. "He's here. He wants to stay. This is where he belongs." "Where is Officer Davis?" Sarah demanded. The figure didn't answer, just turned and walked back into the forest. My radio cut out at 2:34 a.m., Sarah's too. Cell phones, no signal. We were cut off. At 2:58 a.m., footsteps on the highway. Someone approaching from the south. Davis, or something that looked like Davis. Same face, same uniform, but the movement was too perfect, expression blank. He knocked on my window. "Let me in, it's cold." "Identification," I said. "Show me your badge." He smiled. Wrong, emotionless. "You know who I am, Dalton." "What's your badge number?" 7724. "Now let me in. We need to find the real Davis. He's in the forest, where the others are, where we all need to go eventually." "What others?" "The ones who stayed. Mitchell from 1987, Santana from 1993. Parker will join them soon, they always do." "We need to leave," Sarah said. "Now." I agreed. Whatever this was, it wasn't human. We pulled away. The Davis thing stood in the middle of the highway watching us leave. At 4:11 a.m., radios crackled back. "Units 14 and 22, do you copy?" "Dispatch, Unit 14. Officer Davis is missing, possibly in the forest near mile marker 23. Need search and rescue, daylight operation." We drove back to the barracks in silence. The search lasted 3 days. K-9 units, helicopter, volunteers. They found nothing. Davis's scent led 200 yards into the trees, then vanished. Officer Christopher Davis, age 38, disappeared without a trace. Walsh closed Route 11 for night patrols. Day shift only, pairs, communication checks every 15 minutes. I visited Parker again days later. His apartment was chaos, research everywhere. The marks on his arms had spread to his neck. "Route 11 isn't alone," he said, showing maps. "There are thin places everywhere. They've always existed. And once they mark you, they don't let go." The marks were spreading across his skin like dark veins. "Eventually, I'll disappear," he said. "Just like Davis. Just like the others. There's no stopping it." 2 weeks later, Parker vanished. His car was found at mile marker 23. Door open, engine running. He was gone. I was placed on leave for a psychological evaluation. Dr. Brennan couldn't determine if my experiences were real or trauma-induced. The state officially closed Route 11 for nighttime travel. 7 p.m. to 7 a.m. every night. Too many officers had disappeared. Sergeant Walsh insisted on one final patrol to document everything. She took Officer Martinez. I tried to stop her. "I need first-hand evidence," she said. They left at 11 p.m. At 2:34 a.m., my phone rang. Walsh's voice, but wrong, emotionless. "Come back to Route 11. We're waiting. We're all waiting." I called dispatch, both units silent at mile marker 23. I drove there alone, found both patrol cars, doors open, engines running. Walsh and Martinez were gone. I entered the forest following their tracks. I found Martinez first, standing by a tree, facing away. When I circled him, his eyes were open but unfocused, frozen like a statue. Walsh's voice deeper in, "Dalton, help!" I found her sitting against a tree. When she opened her eyes, they were solid black. "You came back," she said in that flat voice. "You belong here now." More figures emerged, people in police uniforms from different eras. Mitchell, Santana, Davis, all with black eyes. "We're all here," Walsh said. "Everyone Route 11 has taken. We exist in all moments simultaneously. Past, present, future. Soon Parker, eventually you." I ran. I crashed through the forest, branches tearing at my uniform, my flashlight beam bouncing wildly. Behind me, I could hear footsteps, many footsteps, following at a steady pace, not running, not hurrying, just walking. Because they knew I couldn't escape, I burst out of the tree line and onto the highway, gasping for air. The 3 patrol cars were still there, emergency lights still flashing. But something was different. There were more vehicles now, dozens of them. Old patrol cars from different decades, all parked along the shoulder, all with their lights flashing. And standing next to each one was a figure in a police uniform. Watching me with hollow eyes, I ran to my vehicle and yanked the door open. The engine was still running. I threw it in drive and accelerated, tires screaming against the pavement. In my rearview mirror, I watched the scene recede. The figures didn't follow. They just stood there, motionless, watching me leave. I drove south at dangerous speeds, checking my mirrors constantly, expecting to see those figures materializing in my back seat or standing in the middle of the road ahead. But the highway remained empty. At 4:03 a.m., my radio crackled back to life. "Unit 14, this is dispatch. Do you copy?" I grabbed the mic. "Dispatch, Unit 14, I copy. Emergency situation at mile marker 23. Sergeant Walsh and Officer Martinez are missing. Multiple anomalous." I stopped. How could I explain what I'd seen, what I'd experienced? Who would believe me? "Unit 14, say again, you're breaking up." I took a breath and chose my words carefully. "Dispatch, Officers Walsh and Martinez are missing. Last seen entering the forest near mile marker 23. I attempted search but was unable to locate them. Request immediate search and rescue response." "Copy that, Unit 14. Units are en route. What's your current location?" "Heading south on Route 11, approximately mile marker 10. I'm exiting the sector now." "Copy. Return to base and prepare for debriefing." I drove straight to the barracks, but I didn't go inside. Instead, I sat in the parking lot watching the eastern sky lighten with approaching dawn. My hands were shaking. I couldn't stop thinking about Walsh, or what had been wearing Walsh's face, and her words. "You belong here now, Dalton. You've been chosen." I checked my forearms again. Still no marks. But I could feel it. The connection Parker had described. The pulling sensation, stronger now, almost physical. Route 11 wanted me back. And part of me, some dark corner of my mind, wanted to return. I needed help, professional help. But first, I needed to warn everyone else. I pulled out my phone and started typing. I documented everything I'd experienced over the past 3 nights. Every detail, every warning, every impossible thing I'd witnessed. I saved copies to multiple locations, my email, cloud storage, sent it to news organizations and police departments and anyone else who might listen. If Route 11 wanted to erase evidence, wanted to prevent people from knowing what it was, then I'd make sure the information was too distributed to destroy. The search for Walsh and Martinez lasted a week. They found nothing, same as with Davis. No bodies, no equipment, no signs of what had happened to them. The forest had swallowed them completely. Parker disappeared on the 8th day. His apartment was found empty, door unlocked, all his research materials scattered across every surface. His car was discovered 2 days later, parked on the shoulder of Route 11 at mile marker 23. Engine running, driver's door open, no sign of Parker. The marks on his arms had spread to his neck and face, according to his landlord who'd seen him the day before. He'd looked hollow, she said, like he was already gone, and his body just hadn't caught up yet. I was placed on administrative leave pending psychological evaluation. Dr. Brennan conducted extensive sessions, trying to determine if I was experiencing a breakdown, trauma response, or genuine anomalous phenomena. His conclusion was carefully worded. Officer Dalton is experiencing genuine distress related to events on Route 11. but without corroborating physical evidence, it's impossible to determine whether these events are objectively real or subjective experiences influenced by isolation, stress, and suggestion. In other words, he didn't know. Nobody knew. The state police officially closed Route 11 for nighttime travel, a permanent closure, 7 o'clock p.m. to 7 o'clock a.m. every night. They cited safety concerns and ongoing investigation, but the real reason was that too many officers had disappeared, and nobody wanted to admit what was really happening. During the day, Route 11 is just a normal highway. Locals use it, trucks travel it, tourists drive through without any issues. But at night, when the sun sets and the forest grows dark, barriers go up at both ends. Nobody is allowed on that highway after dark. Officially, the closure is temporary. Unofficially, everyone knows it's permanent. Route 11 belongs to the darkness now. That was 6 months ago. I'm writing this from my new apartment in Portland, over 200 miles from Route 11. I transferred to a different barracks, different sector, different life. I work day shifts now, surrounded by people and traffic and noise. I avoid rural areas. I avoid forests. I especially avoid empty highways at night. But I can still feel it. The pulling, the connection. It's gotten stronger over the past 6 months, not weaker. Every night, I dream about Route 11. I'm driving that empty highway, passing the familiar landmarks, the intersection with Bear Road, the white farmhouse with the green door, mile marker 23. And in my dreams, I always stop. I always get out of my vehicle. I always walk into the forest. And I always find them there. Walsh, Martinez, Davis, Parker. They're waiting for me, smiling those empty smiles, speaking in those flat, emotionless voices. "Welcome home," they say. "We've been waiting." I wake up in a cold sweat, checking my arms for marks. So far, I'm clean, but I know it's coming. Parker said the marks appeared 3 months after he started patrolling Route 11. I'm at 6 months now. If his timeline holds, the marks should appear soon, and when they do, I'll know I'm running out of time. I've continued researching. There are others like me, people who've encountered thin places, who've been marked by them, who feel that constant pull to return. We find each other online, in obscure forums and support groups that most people dismiss as paranoid delusions. Some have found ways to resist the pull. Meditation, ritual, constant movement, staying on the road, never sleeping in the same place twice, surrounding themselves with people and light and noise, anything to avoid the silence and isolation that thin places seem to require. Others have given up fighting. They write their final posts, say their goodbyes, and then disappear. A few months later, someone will report finding their vehicle abandoned near the location that called to them. But the person is never found. I don't know which group I'll end up in, the fighters or the lost. For now, I'm still here, still working, still functional, still maintaining the appearance of normal life. But I can feel myself changing. I've become paranoid, checking locks multiple times, avoiding anyone who seems too interested in my story. I've started to see patterns where there probably aren't any. Coincidences that feel like messages, random strangers who might be watching me. Last week, I received a package. No return address, no note. Inside was a map of Maine with a single red circle marked on it, the location of mile marker 23 on Route 11. I burned the map, but I remember the location perfectly. I've driven past it hundreds of times in my dreams. Yesterday, I noticed the first mark, small, barely visible, on the inside of my left wrist. Dark lines spreading under the skin, like tiny roads or veins, or the branches of trees. It's started. I estimate I have 3 to 6 months before the marks spread far enough that I can't hide them anymore. before they cover my arms, my neck, my face, before I become like Parker, hollow and haunted, waiting for the inevitable. I'm documenting everything now, writing it down, recording videos, leaving evidence scattered across the internet and in safe deposit boxes and with lawyers who have instructions to release it if I disappear. Maybe it'll help someone. Maybe the next person who encounters a thin place will read my story and make better choices than I did. Maybe they'll know to run faster, to resist longer, to never, ever stop at mile marker 23. Or maybe it won't matter. Maybe thin places are like Parker said, boundary markers that have always existed and always will. Places where reality is permeable, where the membrane between our world and something else is weak. We can avoid them, respect them, fear them, but we can't destroy them. And once they mark you, you're part of them forever. I keep thinking about what the Walsh thing said. We exist in all moments simultaneously, walking the highway forever, waiting for others to join us. If that's true, then somewhere, in some version of time, I'm already there. I've already stopped at mile marker 23. I've already walked into that forest. I'm already standing among the others, wearing an empty smile, waiting for the next victim. And the me that's writing this, sitting in a coffee shop in Portland on a sunny afternoon, surrounded by normal people living normal lives, I'm just a shadow, an echo of the moment before I was taken. A memory that hasn't quite caught up with reality yet. The pulling is stronger today. I can feel Route 11 calling me, whispering my name in the back of my mind. Soon, I'll have to answer. Not because I want to, but because I won't be able to resist anymore. Parker was right about everything. The marks, the pull, the inevitability of return. He knew because he'd lived through it, watched it happen to himself day by day, mark by mark. I wonder where he is now, standing in those dark woods, waiting. Or has he transcended even that, become something so integrated with the thin place that he's not human anymore? I don't want to find out, but I know I will. Last night, I dreamed I was standing on Route 11 at mile marker 23. It was 3:17 a.m., always 3:17 a.m. in these dreams. The forest was silent. The highway was empty, and I was waiting for myself to arrive. I saw headlights in the distance, a patrol car approaching. I knew who was driving. I waved at the windshield, smiled that empty smile, and watched myself pull over. The ME in the patrol car got out, flashlight in hand, approaching cautiously. I opened my mouth to speak, to warn myself, to say something that might change what was about to happen, but all that came out was, "Welcome home." I woke up at 3:17 a.m. The marks on my wrist were spreading. I'm writing this final entry at 4:30 a.m. on October 14th, 2025. The sun will rise in about an hour. I'll drink my coffee, shower, dress for work, and pretend today is normal. But I can feel it. Tonight will be different. Tonight, the pull will be too strong to resist. Tonight, I'll get in my car and drive north. I'll tell myself I'm just going for a drive, just clearing my head, just need some air. But I'll find myself on Route 11. I'll pass the barriers that are supposed to keep people out at night, and I'll drive to mile marker 23, and I'll stop, and I'll get out, and I'll walk into the forest, and I'll join the others who are already there waiting. If you're reading this, please learn from my mistakes. If you encounter a thin place, a location where reality feels wrong, where impossible things happen, where you feel yourself being watched by something you can't see, don't investigate it. Don't try to understand it. Don't convince yourself you can resist it. Just run, as far and as fast as you can. Because Once it marks you, it never lets go. And remember, never stop at mile marker 23. Never answer when the forest calls your name. Never believe that you're strong enough to resist. Because you're not. None of us are. The thin places have been here longer than we have, and they'll be here long after we're gone. They're patient, they're hungry, and they always get what they want in the end. I can hear it now. Route 11 calling my name, whispering that it's time to come home. So, I'm going, not because I want to, but because I don't have a choice anymore. I'm already gone, I just haven't realized it yet. Goodbye.